All right, we're waiting for
I've been kicked out. You want to take me in? I don't like them. You know why?
because they're no. I had to draw the line somewhere. Are we ready to go live, Shirley Desir?
Yes, I just mentioned it to Walter that we're ready.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'd like to call to meeting the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency meeting, May 13th at 8:32 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Lawson,
Here.
Commissioner Lanier,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
Here.
Vice Chair Botel. I'm sorry. I messed up the whole thing. Vice Chair Lawson,
Here.
Chair Botel,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy. Did I get you already?
Here.
Can somebody cut their video off or something? Because there's something going on and that's really disturbing me. It's
I apologize. I did not have my annotated agenda, so I'm going to have to use my city council one to read the statement. Could we have we did the roll call. Could we please have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Lawson?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll read the public comment remarks. Any member of the public wishing to comment publicly on any matter, including items on the agenda, shall submit their
Madam
comments.
Chair,
Yes.
she didn't finish roll call.
I'm sorry, she didn't?
No, because she
Who-
didn't
who
call my
did
name.
Oh,
Me.
Shirley Desir, did you call everybody's name? I'm sorry.
It was Tamara.
Okay. Commissioner Miller Anderson. I had it all messed up. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Here. Here.
Okay. Also present Anita Jenkins, Michael Haygood, and Samara Sagan.
thank you, Kashama. I'm sorry. I thought she was done. Okay, any member of the public wishing to comment publicly on any matter, including items on the agenda, shall submit their comments by email to city. Could you, Tamara, could you read the public comment? I don't have the proper document here. Could you read the item on public comments?
Sure.
And Madam Chair, if I might interrupt, could they, people who are on this call, I don't know, I see names, I have no idea who they are. Could they introduce themselves so we'll know who is
Sure.
on the call with us?
Sure, let's have Tamara do that so she can call their names in order, and after she reads the piece on public comment. I'm sorry, I don't have my proper agenda. Go ahead, Tamara.
Public comments. Any member of the public wishing to comment publicly on any matter, including items on the agenda, shall submit their comments by email to RBCRA Clerk Tamara Sagan at publiccomments, publiccomments at rbcra.com. The email should contain the applicable agenda items, along with the precise wording to be read into the record. Explicit language will not be read. Emails without applicable agenda item numbers will be read under the general public comment section. Be advised the public comments will be accepted for each applicable item in the general public comment section until closure is announced by the chairperson or RBCRA clerk. All email addresses and submitted comments are and will be public record. The RBCRA clerk or designee will read public comments into the record at the appropriate time for no more than 3 minutes. If you have any questions, please contact the RBCRA office at 561-844-3408 or email tseguin@rbcra.com.
Thank you. I'm gonna reprint my agenda. Too much paperwork here. Okay. Do we have any additions, deletions, substitutions from any of the council? Yes, Kashama Miller Anderson, please.
Can we have a conversation about maybe not possibly taking some of this stuff off that we don't have to do, considering it's 8:40?
We certainly can.
So, yeah, that's what I would
Madam
like
Chair?
to.
Madam Chair,
Just a
I'd
second.
like to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Let's let Ms. Miller Anderson finish, and then.
And you all
Lydia.
can let me know. I was thinking maybe 4 could come off, unless that's, Ms. Jenkins, are you the one that's running the meeting? And I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, Mr. Evans was sick. He should have reached out to everybody, all of the council, to let us know. I'm just thinking that we should have known that he wasn't gonna be to the meeting. So, that was my first time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have announced, I mentioned it at our last meeting, but for those of you who are just tuning into this one, I apologize. He did let me know, he thought he would be here, and he felt increasingly worse this afternoon, and his stomach is in really bad shape, and so I apologize.
Right, I heard you, yeah,
I hope he's okay.
I do too, but I did hear you announce that earlier, but he needed to have sent an email or something to all of us so that we knew, and not come to the meeting and not know that he wouldn't be here. So I'm thinking number 4, unless that's something that's pressing, which is about the commercial grant and I'm just putting this out here. You all can tell me whether or not you want to, but these are the ones I'm thinking may not need to happen tonight. Then we can maybe meet on the 27th, our regular day. The operating parameters for the event center, unless that's something that we need to talk
What number
about.
is that?
Number 4, I'm sorry, 5.
5.
And number 7, I'm not really sure what 7 is about. I didn't quite see anything to help me figure that one out. And then number 10, the backyard garden project. And I mean, you all can let me know. There may be more information I'm not privy to.
Madam Chair, I wanted to pull number 7 and number 8 anyway. Number 7 was the CRA structure that I was going to send to Mr. Evans, both Mr. Evanses. I didn't send everything that I wanted to send to them so that it wasn't a part of the backup, and there's no way that I want to go forward with that item and not have everybody to have that information before we discuss it. And number 8 is basically a part of that. So I wanted to pull number 7 and number 8 anyway.
Okay.
But that's
The only
number
thing
8
is that number 8 is quite substantive, and I think that other council people may object to having it be pulled. I can listen to what other people want to say about that. Well, first, Mr. McCoy, I think, had his hand up, and then we'll go back to Ms. Miller Anderson. Mr. McCoy.
So yeah, I too was expecting Mr. Evans here, and sad that he got ill. I did see him in traffic today, so I was really shocked to hear you say that. So, yeah, I guess you say it was stomach related, whatever it is. It must be pretty severe because I know I seen him in traffic earlier this afternoon. Well, this afternoon, I should say.
He did feel better earlier in the day, but then it got worse as the evening progressed. So, yeah.
Okay. Well,
did you have something you wanted to pull?
Well, I wanted, I think, as you mentioned, specifically called a special meeting for the process, the selection process for the CRA executive director, and I definitely want to have that discussion. I think the item related to the event center, I'm okay with that.
What number is that, Mr. McCoy?
Yeah, let's use the numbers. So I'm hearing you say that.
Number 5.
Okay.
That can be put off because the center is technically not open, so I don't know that there's any urgency on that.
If I may, Chair, number 5 was an item that has carried over for a few meetings, and we were just trying to conclude it, but it is something that can wait. Okay. And number 4 was a directive asking us to come back from bringing some updated procedures, and we can come back with that. There's no urgency there.
Thank you. So are we saying that we'll leave number 6, which is approving the authorization of the existing architectural? We probably need to move on that. I don't think that will take too long. We'll leave number 6. We'll take out number 7. We'll leave number 8. Is number 9 something that's critical?
If you're going to leave number 8, then I need to be able to have a conversation about the CRA structures as well, because it kind of goes hand in hand. If we're going to talk about the process selection for a CRA executive director, then the CRA structure itself should also be discussed. So, but I didn't want to discuss number 7 because I had not given all you guys the information, and that's the reason why I wanted to pull it. But if you want to have a conversation about number 8, then I can just throw my 2 cents in.
Okay, so we'll have 7 and we'll have 8. What about 9, Ms. Jenkins?
That is something that we can move. We just promised you that we would come back with an update when we had something to show on progress, but we can set, the information is in your packet.
And number 11?
Madam Chair, not number 7, because I said that I'll talk about number 8, because I didn't want to talk about number 7 without everybody having the information.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying that you had to have number 7 because number 8 hinged on number 7.
It does, but I can still talk about number 7 without having a whole full discussion about it. I just wanted to be able to.
So we're leaving it on the agenda so that we can have a discussion about it. Right?
You can leave number 8 on, but number 7, because you guys did not have the information, I did not want to have a conversation about it.
All right, so you want us to take off number 7?
I did want you to take off number 7 and number 8, but that's just my druthers.
Okay.
Well, she said she was going to leave on 7, so you can say what you need to say.
Yeah,
but I don't have the means to give you this information that I have in my possession.
Well, we can listen. We can listen. We're okay with that, I think, right,
okay,
folks?
all right, cool.
Yeah, we'll listen. We'll leave it off. 7 and 8 are on.
Listen, I do not want to have a conversation now. And you
guys
it
won't be a conversation.
We'll just be a conversation. Okay. So number 11, can Ms. Jenkins, can number 11 wait? Presentation, Avenue E?
That is an update. I think it will be.
Madam Chair, I would like to hear that.
Some directive.
All right. We'll leave number 11. And number 12, we probably should leave. And number 13, we probably should leave because it sounds like those are things that CRA needs to have us weigh in on. Yes. So let me review what we've got now so that the clerk, so that whoever is doing this, Shirley or whoever. So we're taking off 4 and 5. We're leaving on 6, 7 for just us to our own edification. 8, we're taking off 9 and 10. We're leaving on 11, 12, and 13. Do we agree?
Number 9, is that a little quick little update for the townhouse?
It's a quick update. I can make it very quick.
And not a presentation.
Well, it's a presentation, but you actually have the presentation in your
Right.
packets.
We have it.
Right.
And I can follow up with you if you have
Just for
questions.
the public, just for the public, because I know Ms. Lanier has talked about the townhouses and all of that. Can you just say a couple sentences about it? And if we need to bring it to the next meeting, we
All
can.
right, so we'll leave 9 on,
fine.
but for a brief, okay. So are we clear what we have, what we're talking about?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I don't particularly have a problem with 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, and 13. But I guess at our last CRA meeting, when I asked specifically for the item related to relieving the executive director of that position and him reverting back to the planning director, perhaps was I expected to make a formal request or a specific motion that this is included back on this agenda? Because it's clearly not there, and that's, I guess.
Would that fall under the rubric of CRA structures? Could you add your comments on that matter under number 7?
No, I don't have comments related to it. I wanted deliberative action because we withdrew in light of your concern that it wasn't published.
Okay,
Even
so-
there's no requirement that it had to be published. Do you recall?
So your concern is that that something that you wanted to have on this agenda is not on the agenda. Is that your concern?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I'm gonna send something to your personal email address. Who it come from?
Ms. Lanier?
Shirley, your mic, turn your mic off. Miss Lanier, Council,
Number 7. which is the
Commissioner
item
Lanier,
No,
Early.
let's listen in. No.
stop. She turned it off. So bad. So, Roderick, Commissioner McCoy, do you want us to add an item to the
Yes.
agenda? Okay,
Yes.
so would you articulate it so that Tamara or whoever is recording can get it right, and then we'll add it?
I wanted to discuss and deliberate on relieving the current executive director from the position of executive director to revert back to the director of planning.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
He's wanting to add that onto the agenda. Is that what we're
he
doing?
wants to add that on the agenda.
Okay, and then we would have the conversation about it when, because
Yes.
I would have a question
Madam
about it.
Chair, I thought that was number 8. That's not number 8?
No, Mr. McCoy would like it to be articulated separately. So we're gonna add it as
Okay.
number 7A. Does that,
But-
will that fit, Mr. McCoy, will that fit properly with your concept of what this discussion will be? To make it number 7A? Or do you prefer to make it 8A?
You can make a number, it doesn't matter what the number is.
Well,
Can we have that discuss, can we make that 8A, Madam
Sure.
Chair?
we can make it
Yeah,
8A.
but it has nothing to do with the selection process, so we're clear.
Okay, I know.
Correct.
So I just wanted to know where you wanted it placed on the agenda.
It
And
doesn't
Mr.
it doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
matter. Then in that case, we'll accept Mr. Lawson's recommendation that it be 8A. So
But-
whoever is in charge of the agenda, Tamara, is that you? I'm sorry. Yes, you've got that clear on the order now. Now that we've spent 10 minutes just figuring out what we're talking about.
We're gonna
And-
remove 4, 5, and 10.
We're removing 4, 5, and 10 with the caution that 9 be quick.
And
we're
Madam
adding-
Chair,
And we're
it's-
adding 8A. Got it?
And Madam Chair, just to make sure there's no confusion, 8A or 8.5 or whatever we want to call it, so that they're not in conjunction, so that it's just in between 8 and 9.
It's right, it's a separate.
Between, it's between between 8 and 9, okay.
8 and a
Between
half.
8 and 9.
8 and a half.
8.5.
Was
Yep.
there a movie that name? I don't know. Fellini. No, it was a Fellini movie. Okay,
It
we're
was
good.
9 and a half.
One last concern. I
Mr.
would
McCoy.
respectfully ask if we could take number 13 ahead of everything else on the agenda after consent, simply because I don't know what's going to happen or how long this meeting is going to last, but this specifically is a concern of mine that I wanted to discuss, being that everything is shut down and we do have municipal tenant, I'm sorry, CRA tenants, and I don't want that to be left off. So I at least want that to be heard in the event that we become exhausted and decide to close the meeting. So it seems pretty routine, and the backup is there. I would like to see if the board will indulge just taking that first.
Does anyone have a strong objection to that? I don't. Seems like no one does. So we will take that request for the approval of COVID-19 small business plan for Marina Village tenants, now listed as 13, and we'll make it number, for purposes of not having to reorder the whole agenda, we'll make it number 3A, but it's on regular business. Is that all right? You got that, Tamara?
The number doesn't have to change. You could just say it's
okay.
going to be.
Okay, so it's 13, but we're taking it out of order. Great, thank you. Okay. Where are we? So we're at the adoption. So did we do disclosures? No, we have to do disclosures. Anybody have
You probably
disclosures?
need, Madam Chair, you probably need to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
I don't think I've gotten there yet, because
Okay.
we usually do disclosures first,
Okay.
and then we approve the agenda. So do we have any disclosures by commission and staff?
But I'm moving that we accept the additions and the deletions.
Well, we'll do that when we adopt. Oh,
The
I'm sorry. We could do that now. We can, Mr. McCoy is moving that we accept the additions and deletions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes. Now, do we have any disclosures by commission and staff?
So what I need to do?
Do we have any disclosure? Okay, no disclosures. Now we can adopt the agenda.
Can people mute their mics if they're not talking, please? Everybody
Madam
needs
Clerk,
to mute their mics, please, if you are not talking.
I see something that says, wait a second, let me get this.
Shirley,
straight.
Lanier, Commissioner Lanier, could you mute your mic, please? Thank you. Now we're ready to adopt the agenda. Madam Clerk?
We need a motion and a second.
No,
So moved.
Yes, yeah, we do.
Second.
We got
Okay, so I got Commissioner McCoy motion. Who was the second?
Lawson.
Awesome. Okay. Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council person so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do we have any public comments on consent agenda?
No, we do not have any public comments.
Move
Okay,
consent,
can I get
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second? Someone second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Lanier,
I'm having some technical difficulties, yes.
Commissioner
We're-
McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And now we will take a look at what was item number 13, still item number 13, request for the approval of COVID-19 small business plan, et cetera. Madam Clerk, read the,
Request for the approval of COVID-19 small business plan for Marina Village tenants.
Madam Chair, I offer a motion, an amended motion, relative to this item, and instead of the item encompassing the months of April through June, I would like to see if we can go March through June, to take that total amount from 28,000 to 38,463.44 with discussion.
I had a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Where the
Yeah,
funds coming from
see-
for this?
You need a
Women's
second.
barbecue, they've been killing it.
Hello?
Madam Chair, you need a second.
We need to mute our mics, people.
Did we have a second? I'm sorry, why is my thing off?
I thought McCoy and Lawson did it.
I think we did have a second, Mr. Haygood.
No, I just offered the amendment. I didn't hear anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I didn't hear a second.
Can we have a second? 1 second?
and I'll second it, but I'm wanting my question answered. That's probably why I was asking.
But, I just want to start a discussion.
I just said I offered a second, but I
I
want
want to
my
make sure I'm
question
not
answered.
missing anybody. So sorry. No one seconded that, so.
I just said I seconded. I
Sorry.
need to have
I didn't
that
hear you.
question answered though.
Thank you.
Second for
What was your-
discussion.
What was your question, Ms. Miller Anderson?
Where are the funds coming from for this particular item? Did I overlook that?
Commissioner Miller Anderson, we don't have the source of funding. We would be foregoing rent that would be paid into the Marina Event Center coffers, and I'll have to get that information to you. I don't know which line item. Conrad is on the line, and Conrad, if you're able to opine as to which line item we'll be taking the money from, if you would help out.
Point of
and I
information,
also-
Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Miss. I need to figure out who is on this. I don't know these
Oh,
people on. I see.
I
Yeah.
apologize. We did ask that people introduce themselves. Can we ask Tamara to call people by name and would ask people to say who they are and what their function is, Tamara? So that we don't have everybody responding at once.
Okay, so I see a Jeff.
I believe that's a consultant with KCI,
Heidi Siegel,
with KCI.
and everybody else is all the rest of us.
We have CRA staff on the line.
Right.
We have Conrad Kohler, who's a financial specialist, Shirley Desir, the office manager. Andre Lewis is on the line, and he's our senior project manager. And to clarify a point, if I may, Commissioner McCoy, you were asking to amend or make a motion that the period of rent coverage include March. We don't have past due rent for March.
Right.
And in actuality, several of the businesses have paid for at the beginning of May. And if so, we're proposing to give 3 months of rent relief. It may be May, June, and July, but the vast majority of them would be for the 3 months that you see illustrated there, April, May, and June.
Correct. And that's why I wanted to have the discussion. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So I was looking at this, comparing it to the stay-at-home orders by the governor, and when the actual, I guess, shutdown occurred of businesses, and that stay-at-home order, at least on the city side, I'm looking at our state of emergency was declared on March, was it 18th? And I did want to be considerate of that these are our personal CRA, not personal, but these are the CRA tenants, and this recovery process is very long. And I know I just seen that they're currently trying to do I guess a modified version of opening, doing takeout services, at least for the 2 restaurants. But certainly I think that is very minor in grand schemes to do another $9,600 to cover the month of March, which I understand those rents have been already possibly paid. But in the event, just as a recovery initiative by the city's CRA board to offer that to the members. And, you don't have to accept it, but I certainly commend staff for bringing this forward, because my first question was going to be what's happening with those individuals that's leasing space and how is that affecting us? And I know I've had this conversation with the management company for the Ocean Mall, so I wanted to at least start a discussion and see what the desire of this board was related to adding an additional month.
Do we have any comments, Commissioner Miller Anderson?
So did Mr. Conrad have the answer to my question? Yeah.
Well, the money would really come from a diminished amount of revenue. So we have revenue set aside in our budget for these rents. And if we don't collect the revenue, then, you know, we'll have less money to spend. We also have, you know, the increased revenue for some other rents. The event center building has been raising more money than we budgeted, and some other areas are raising more money. So
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, does Mr. Conrad have to come on camera to speak?
Yeah.
Mr. Hager, I believe he has to be on camera.
No, you should. Did you not hear me?
No, we heard you. We heard you, but I believe you have to be on camera as well.
They just
Thank you,
wanted
Mr.
to
Conrad.
see your
Okay,
face.
not a
Thank you.
problem.
Okay, so what was the answer?
So it'll just be a diminished amount of revenue that we'll see. So instead of our budget on the revenue line is $276,000. So we'll see that $40,000 less in our revenue.
Okay. And Mr. McCoy, you said for what dates, for what months again?
I wanted the month of March, but I wanted to attach it to the back end, so it would essentially be the month of July. Especially,
Okay, so,
you know, and if it's not a comfortable position for the members of this commission, then, you know, we can bring this back in a couple months. I mean, we're in May right now.
I don't think we're at that point. I'm just trying to get clarity on what month specifically you're talking about.
Mr. McCoy?
Right, but I was looking from the date that we declared a state of emergency and when the governor actually ordered all of these businesses which you would call non-essential businesses, such as jet skiing and some of these other people that lease space down at our marina.
Right. So, but if your goal is to give them 5 months or whatever amount of months you're wanting to give them, I think we should just say that. And especially if she said most of them are already paid for March or April, or whatever
Right.
months they pay for, we want to give them 5 months. Just say we want to give them 5 months.
Okay, well, it's actually 4 months, but I wanted the nexus to be in sync with when the governor closed all non-essential business. That way, we're not giving anybody anything. I think it's a fair statement that if they're leasing space from us and, 3 weeks or 2 weeks into the month, they're basically closed down, then, we shouldn't be, standing open with a 3-day notice, if you will.
Okay, so if she goes, so if we go back to the March date, they would be provided credit.
Correct.
Basically is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm fine with
That's
that.
not too much accounting problem for the finance person.
Well,
Commissioner
we'll do whatever
Mr. Kohler, I think
Yeah.
Mr. McCoy has a question. Is that something that's doable?
yeah,
Fine. Okay.
it's not a problem. We can credit it, but everybody's paid for March, April, and May. Almost everybody's paid for March, April, and May.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say that we would make the adjustments, and we wanted to come back in approximately 90 days to give you an update on the progress. We have been in contact with the tenants, and several of them were proactive and reached out to us seeking relief. And Conrad has been very good about staying in contact with the tenants. And I'm sure they're watching this and would be very happy. And we'll make sure that we bring you an accounting.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Mr. McCoy, you recognized.
So, Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Kohler, can you clarify? Someone said they're current through May. Is that because they've already paid the rent and we're applying this as a credit?
There are
That's
several,
correct.
and there are several businesses. Not all of them have rent that's due on the first of the month, and they may have submitted it already, although they've asked for some relief. They've sacrificed in other ways to be able to not be late. And we've told them that we bring the item to commission and we work with them. So we would give them the credit.
Okay.
For that
All right.
one,
Well,
for
however
that
it
time
works,
period.
I just want to make sure that it's clear that you guys offered 3 months, and I'm suggesting that we should do 4 months.
Yes.
And whether it's additional credit, because I'm literally seeing business owners within the city of Riviera Beach shuddering because there is no relief from a private landlord who has a mortgage obligation, and they just have to move on. So I certainly think, you know, as a governing body, that's something that we can certainly support for the people that, you know, really service our community in lease space in our facility, to try to help them as, you know, separate and completely independent from the recovery efforts that we're going to have a discussion about at a later time. So 4 months is my recommendation.
Are you making a
Madam Chair.
motion, Mr. Yeah, I heard Mr. Lawson, yes.
Yes, Madam Chair. I am in complete support of this, of us taking it from 3 to 4 months, being that the businesses there are within our facility and they need the support of the council, they need the support for their rents. And I agree with Councilman McCoy that if we can do the 4 months, that would be sufficient to kind of help these businesses to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawson. Anyone else want to weigh in? Mr. McCoy, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
There's a motion on the table,
Okay, thank you. And it was seconded?
and it was seconded.
Thank you.
So I'm clear, Madam Chair, if
could
I
you-
can, I just
could
want to
you-
make sure that I'm clear to amend it, because I used the month of March, and I want to make sure that it's clear that we're amending staff recommendation from 3 months to 4 months. That's my motion, amended motion.
Do you want the clerk to read it back to you, Mr. McCoy?
Not necessary, amend staff's recommendation from 3 months to 4 months.
Okay. Madam Clerk, you can take a roll call.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lawson,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson, Chair Botal.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Okay. And now we're moving to number, thank you,
Thank you.
to number 6.
Did we do the consent agenda?
Yes, didn't we?
Yes. We did.
We did. It's item 6.
Okay. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving and authorizing the execution of an amendment to the existing architectural services agreement with REG Architects Incorporated to increase the compensation by $19,700 and modifying the scope of services to provide architectural design and engineering services to develop a parking lot at East 28th Street. Legal description, Lee Wood Park, LT3 PCN 5643422817000030 for the purposes of a supplemental parking for the redevelopment project at 2600 Broadway, providing an effective date.
Commissioners, this is an item that
So moved.
is,
We need to have somebody move in second. Mr.
So
Jenkins.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Jenkins.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Commissioners, this is an item that has been before you with much discussion about the redevelopment of the Broadway and Blue Heron project. And following the directive of the commission and seeking to acquire an adjacent parcel, there is a need for additional architectural services to design the parking lot. Andre Lewis, our project manager, senior project manager, has a brief presentation about the amendment.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. How we doing? Okay, so I'm gonna go through the amendment for the REG Architects contract. Okay, so a little bit of background on this item. So November 2018, the agency purchased the building located at 2600 Broadway. In April 2019, the board approved the contract with REG to provide architectural services. The initial site plan meeting was recently held, and it revealed that the site was lacking in sufficient parking. So the current site status, 50% of the civil and landscaping construction documents have been completed. We have conducted an initial site plan meeting with our development services or the city's development services. The site plan documents have been submitted for cursory review, and we have completed the interior layout of the first and second floor. Conclude, the agency has also secured 2 off-site satellite locations to provide supplementary parking. We're continuing to negotiate a shared access agreement with our neighbor to the east, the property owner to the east, and that's ongoing. We've completed a traffic study for the traffic performance standards, and we've completed a site photometrics on the site. The survey of the subject lot, which is on East 28th Street, has been completed. The survey for the cross-access easement has just been recently completed. We received that today. So the budgetary impact for this, REG's current contract is currently $246,250, and the proposed increase to complete the architectural and design services for the 28th Street lot will be $19,700 with a 9% contingency, which will the contract will have a grand total of $289,885.50. And I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lewis, the parcel that you are looking to add into this proposal, what parking is this going to be for? Is this going to be for staff? Is this going to be, which part of the business is this parking going to be for?
It will be for staff and any other tenants that would need long-term off-site parking.
Okay, follow up, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The parking lot.
Mr. Lawson, your mic is off.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. The parking would be for long-term tenants parking. What type of security are we looking to provide for that parking lot and the adjacent parking lot that we're utilizing or that we're leasing?
I don't believe we have a specific security setup at this time. I know we've discussed having our safety perceptions development on the 2600 building, and addition to that, some cameras, things of that nature. But we don't have a safety plan for the offsite parking as of yet.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lewis, this property hasn't been conveyed to the CRA yet, correct?
We got approval from the board to complete the purchase. I know that the actual execution of the contract is in the works.
Has the city and the city council members giving a formal resolution authorizing the sale of this purchase of this property?
To my
I don't believe
understanding,
that has occurred yet.
I believe that did occur. I'm not sure.
I thought we voted on it to make an ask for the city, which, yeah, I think in the mirror we are the city. But, I was concerned because I also heard of other individuals concerned with this parking. And until we get actual site control at the CRA in title, I don't want to really delay this process, but why are we really talking about amending it, a current contract to an additional $19,000 when we haven't even decided on the city side as far as the manager's plan and the city's plan with this property. Because we did go through a really, overhaul of the city's policy related to surplus property. So I don't want to start this conversation if, we haven't even connected the dots, from the city side.
Mr. McCoy, I believe you're correct. The item has not gone to the city yet. We've been attempting to get it placed on the city's agenda to consider. But
Follow up. Has there been a, I'm not trying to stifle this, but I really am concerned. Has there been a conversation or at least a discussion with administration from the city that this is a declaration of surplus land that the city is willing to sell? Because I think at this point to do this would be premature if the city decides something different. And,
No, I was saying, yes, there have been discussions with the city manager and the city attorney, along with our interim executive, Scott Evans, about completing the process. And again, we've already gotten board approval on this side, and there have been preliminary discussions. Yes.
Okay. It'd be my personal perspective that we should wait until we connected the dots, unless you can offer Mr. Lewis and Ms. Jenkins that this is something that's imperative, that's going to hold up something else. But it seems like this is a annex parking space that's not even contiguous to this property, that I don't see how or why we should begin a contract for someone to start architectural work or engineering work on this property when you don't even have site control. And I know it seems real weird to say that at this point, because we are, we carry both of those titles. So my understanding that we should probably wait, unless you guys can offer something different as far as a delay.
Ms. Jenkins, is there any need for this to be approved tonight, or could we ensure with our persuasive powers that it be put on our next agenda as city council people?
I believe we could wait the 2 weeks, and Andre let me know otherwise. We were attempting to keep the site plan approval process moving, and making sure that as the other elements of the design were being developed, that we could do this in conjunction. Just trying to save time and make a smoother development process, but we can wait 2 weeks.
Okay, given that, I think we'll take Mr. McCoy's suggestion and ask, could you, Ms. Jenkins, please reach out to City Manager Evans and make sure that this gets put,
yes,
request of him that this be put on our next agenda, which will be on the 20th. I think everybody would agree that this could be put on the agenda. Any objections to that? Okay,
well,
so.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Miller Anderson.
Now, I'm just a little confused now. I know you said you're asking Ms. Jenkins to get with Jonathan Evans. Is she not reporting back to Mr. Scott Evans, or?
Well, obviously, she's going to have to go through Scott.
Surely.
I mean, whoever is in the
yes,
position that can make that happen. Yeah, just because she's here. So yeah, well, Shirley or whoever there at CRA is going to do it. That'd be great.
we'll make sure that the message is carried forward for sure.
Thank you. Do we need to ask that the motion be withdrawn then?
Well,
Mr. McCoy?
so prior to that, I guess in the alternative, I mean, even if we were to approve this tonight, Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Lewis, was it the desire of you to have the architect to start on this before we receive site control?
Well, they would start the initial layout and the engineering on the site, but this is all a part of our site plan approval. This was contingent upon us getting site control of that property, and again, but it can wait 2 weeks.
Well, I don't know if 2 weeks is going to be it, because I think the agenda for next week has already been published. Well, actually, it's probably not published, but it was already finalized. So I don't want to say 2 weeks. Can we just withdraw this item, and you guys, without giving you a definitive 2 week time date, if it takes 4 weeks, that's fine. But I definitely don't agree that we need to start spending money and then we haven't had a new update in light of everything that has occurred with COVID-19, that we're now selling this property to the CRA, or that this particular parcel is not, the desire of administrations to be repurposed. So
Well,
I don't want to use 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll bring it back as soon as practical.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Ms. Jenks. Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Do we have a
So,
motion?
would you please
for the record?
withdraw? Yeah, we need whoever made the motion to withdraw the motion, and the second to withdraw the second. Who made the
Madam Chair,
motion?
I ask that we withdraw.
Thank you. Thank you. Or would you prefer that we table it? I mean, we can do either.
Well,
It might be
actually,
simpler just to withdraw it, and then when you all get it all in place, then we'll put it back on the agenda. Right, Mr. McCoy?
Yes,
Right,
that's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
So it's not
Okay.
hanging on every
So
agenda.
it's not hanging, yeah. Okay, so this motion was withdrawn. We're gonna put that to bed for a little while. Item number 7.
CRA structures.
Yeah, item number 7 is something that we talked about at the last CRA meeting about the possibility, just some discussion about the CRA as a part of the city, which the CRA basically is a part of the city. I wanted to share with you some information about a potential CRA structure, unified city CRA structure that kind of looks at the city council as the CRA. I mean, the city council is the CRA board, and of course, as I said before, this council sits as the city council. We sit as the CRA board, and we also sit as the utility district board. So, with that being said, this is just a discussion piece to talk about some of the structures of how it could look for our city council / CRA board, as the city manager, the CRA director is being underneath us, basically finance, public safety, community redevelopment. All of these things are kind of put in together because we are sitting as one board. Now, I also have another piece that kind of gives an idea of, let's see if I can pull that one up. I'm not accustomed to this, so give me a little leeway, people. Now, if you can look at some of these pros and cons of the having it in this structure. There are the pros of leverage a strong, competent, unifying, visionary, credential, and certified executive leader in combination with the range of professional staffing of depth and breadth for the skill set that is needed. Some of the cons are, no unified, strong leadership to chart a new vision for the community redevelopment agency. Now, as you know, people, we, the city council members, we all went through this whole strategic planning process at the beginning of our reign, and we had people who were there, and we went through this whole process of putting together what we envision this city to be in, 10 years, how we see this city, looking in 10 years. So this information that I put together was basically, straight from some of the issues that were brought up during our conversation and discussion about the strategic planning for the city in the next 10 years. The management, the unified management, the enhanced coordination, the enhanced operations. Some of the cons are the lack of interagency communication, less oversight. And when I say lack of interagency communication, just tonight, Mr. Councilman McCoy was talking about the fact that, the city has not even heard this information. So, it's this coordination between the city, between the CRA, between the utility district board, so that we're all on one accord. And even though we sit as different boards, same people, different boards for these different entities, having all of these structures under, especially this particular structure, under the city gives us the opportunity to not have disjointed and uncoordinated planning, because what we're planning for the city, and we all were there at that meeting where we talked about what we saw and what we look at in terms of how the city is going to be in 10 years, we all had the same idea. We all had the same vision that we would not have delays in execution of projects, that we would not have duplication of execution of projects, and that we would not have the duplication or the higher costs and expenditures to deliver results, which means that we're doing something in the CRA district that is a part of the city. So this is just this particular piece, the one that I showed before, is just a discussion piece for us to have some kind of back and forth, the same way we did during our strategic planning process, to be able to talk about how this would look for the city and the CRA as a joint venture.
Mr. McCoy?
I'm trying to get back to.
Can I allow Mr. McCoy to have a question here?
Yeah, sure, but I'm trying to get back to at least see him. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so let me see. I don't have my glasses. Matter of fact, I don't even have glasses, but I can't see any of that you are reading off.
Oh, can anybody
really,
see it?
I can see it, but it's really small.
Yeah.
Is this something that you can share with us? Because
yes,
I mean, I can
yes,
hear
and
you
that's
saying,
the reason.
But I can't.
That's the reason why I wanted. That's the reason why I wanted to send this to you guys before I had a conversation about it, because you know I am a very big stickler of having a conversation about anything that you have not seen. But because you left it on the agenda, because I think it's a part of number 8 and number 8.5, that I wanted to just kind of put that out there. But we can move on, and I will send this information to you guys so that we can bring this back to the CRA agenda, so that we can have a robust discussion about this.
Ms. Miller-Anderson, and then Mr. McCoy again. Miller-Anderson.
Yeah, don't send it to us, Ms. Lanier.
Yes.
When it comes back, it needs to just be put on the agenda. So don't send that to us.
Ma'am.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I'll send
And,
it to.
Ms. Miller-Anderson's not finished, Mr. McCoy. Just wait 1 second. Mr. Miller-Anderson.
And she was right. We just left it on there because, well, she said it went with 8, but I don't think we were planning on having a big discussion on it. So I didn't have anything to add other than just don't send it, just have it uploaded.
Mr. McCoy.
Right, I'll have it as a part of the next agenda.
Okay. Mr. McCoy.
So, you're making these statements about we, and I can tell you something, Ms. Lanier, I disagree. The CRA is not a part of the city, because if you're going to use that, you have to define the CRA just what it is statutorily. It's a dependent district of the city of Riviera Beach, in the same fashion that the Riviera Beach Housing Authority is a dependent district of the city of Riviera Beach. And I don't necessarily agree that this is what I would like to see of our CRA. So I would reserve, the rest of my particularly concerns about this unified structure, because currently right now, the city has modified every operational standpoint, from HR to police, fire, and even utilities department. I don't want to bog down the development arm of the city when we have issues. And I can tell you, if you're not convinced, look at COVID-19. If you're not convinced, look at the computer hacking incident. If you're not convinced, look at the state of emergency that we had to declare when we had a hurricane last year. So I don't necessarily agree with your
I agree
position,
with
but I will say that I think we can definitely have the conversation, but to suggest that we need to do it in some of these pros and cons, I mean, if I can add to that list, I can give you a lot of more cons as to why I don't think this is a good idea.
Then,
if we're going to
that is
the CRA board,
the reason why
we need to turn around and try to do that for every other dependent district of the city, as opposed to just picking out the CRA, because literally we have positions that have not even been advertised on the human resources side. So, I respect you bringing this forth, but there's a lot more conversation that has to occur. And then there's a lot more considerations about the structure and the debt and a number of different operational things that we have to do currently as the CRA that I think would be very much premature to start. And I respect what it is that you're doing, but you can't have this CRA structure conversation without having the CRA in their staff and operational components who run the day-to-day to be able to discuss what it is that they do and why it's important in the current projects, but to suggest that we can just shift it over, that's a long way out. I want to make sure that
I am not
May I
suggesting
say-
that,
Mr.
Mr.
McCoy and Ms.
McCoy.
Lanier, it sounds to me like Ms. Lanier is very willing to have this put on some subsequent agenda. Could somebody turn their mic off? It sounds to me like Ms. Lanier is very willing to have this put on some future agenda so that we don't have any more conversation about this, because we'll discuss it when the time is right. Do you agree, Ms. Lanier?
I agree that at our next meeting, that if this is, I can send this information out. Mr. McCoy can bring his cons. I think it saves money for the city.
Right.
And I think that when you say we talked about this in our workshop in terms of, combining some of the entities, and we're not talking about privatization. We're talking about combining this under what we control. So yes, we will bring this back for more discussion. And I agree with Mr. McCoy. It deserves a lot more discussion.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we'll move along now. If there's no other comment about this, we'll move along to item number 8.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. As directed, I provided you with a memorandum addressing the concerns of the directions that you gave us at the last meeting. We have okay. At your directions, I met with Mrs. Dickerson, the director of the Human Relations Department, and she provided 9 different companies that were, I guess, headhunters or executive search committees. She, through her office, sent out requests for proposals to each of the 9 firms. As we stated, we got 3 responses which are attached to the memorandum. I also provided you with some information from the last executive search that we had, that the CRA did, which was done, I guess, I don't know about in-house, but we didn't use a third-party search firm. We provided you with, I guess, generally how the search was done. It was advertised in several publications, professional publications relating to planning and redevelopment work, which were listed. Some of the things that we're going to need to, that you will need to address, besides deciding whether you're still going with a third-party executive search firm, is the approval of the job qualifications for the position. We provided you with the job description, salary range, and so forth as an attachment. You're going to need to determine the screening process for the applicants and the salary and benefits for the position. Obviously, some of these things will be dependent upon, from a timing standpoint, on when you decide to go with if you decide to go with a third-party search firm, and I guess at that point you could also determine how you can do the screening and so forth. I hope this information is helpful. I don't know how you want to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Haygood. I appreciate the fact that you gave us this job description and the advertisement summary that we did the last time. I guess the most important question is now, do we agree with this description? Has everybody had a chance to look at the job description? Does anybody want to weigh in on any changes to it, or should somebody make a motion that we go with this job description? Does anybody? I think that's
to be honest,
what Mr. Haygood needs is for us to say, yes, this is a good job description, or no, we want to make some changes to it. Am I right, Mr. Haygood?
Yes, and I didn't know that you wanted to do. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you wanted to address it this evening, but at some point you're going to need to address it. And also, I guess the biggest decision would be whether you're going to use a third-party search firm or whether you're going to use basically the procedures that we used previously.
Okay. Well, to summarize, I don't know whether you want to summarize the 3 search firms that we were provided information about all had different tactics and different price ranges. One of them actually wanted 25% of the annual salary. One of them wanted $20,000 and one wanted $25,000. Am I right, Mr. Haygood?
That's correct.
Yeah, that was.
Go ahead, Ms. Lanier.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I didn't mean to interrupt
Go
you.
ahead.
That's what I was saying, that, you know, if we were using the last job description, you know, we talked about this, and I think that the council even decided that they wanted a search firm. So that's neither here nor there at this point. But I mean, if we were to, I'm asking Mr. Haygood, did we use this last job description as a basis for this new one?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
I'm asking that we have advertised this job before.
Yes.
And apparently we've advertised this job numerous times. I wanted to know, was this job description, this new one that you have, was this based on the old one that we've used?
It's the exact same one.
This is the old one.
Okay. Okay.
But you know, for instance, the salary range, I don't know if you want to use the same salary range. I think the cap on this was 125,000, though in fact I think your last executive director exceeded that amount. There's some other issues in the job description that I guess you need to give us some direction on whether it's something that you want, educational background and so forth.
I think it needs to be said that, you know, if we're talking about, I'm talking about, you know, CRA structure, that the person has to be, you know, at least aware of different types of structures of CRAs. That the structure that I introduced tonight was something that is around the state that they do. So if a person, I don't think that I saw that the people who, or the person that we're looking for is familiar with those different types of hybrid types of CRAs.
Mr. McCoy, go ahead.
So, if I can, I'm less concerned about their familiarity with the different types of CRAs, because if you look in statute, I think just the composition of how a CRA board is created, there's at least 3. I know you can have the current form that we're in now, and then you can also have a hybrid form where you have members who are not elected as well as elected members, and then you can have one that is solely are appointed members. So, I mean, there's all kind of different variations of the CRA. Most importantly, we got to understand the function and what we expect from a CRA. But I can tell you a few things that jumped out to me automatically, and I appreciate that Mr. Haygood, was $125,000. That was a 2009 salary, which I don't even know that will be recruiting the right type of individuals, and especially given that there's a residency requirement, which I'm not so sold that we need to remove, because I don't want to have a situation where we have a part-time resident CRA director where we have to basically pretty much wait on, you know, them to do whatever. But I don't know necessarily know that I want to remove that portion. But I definitely wanted to see that we need to have a real conversation, because clearly we've set the precedent already when we've hired both the city attorney and also our current city manager as to what the salary ranges is. And clearly this is probably 75,000 at least off from around that range. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I seen was the requirement in the education that said related to municipal community development. While certainly I want them to have experience dealing in government, however, CRAs aren't solely limited to municipalities. So there's CRAs that actually covers areas and districts that go beyond a city's boundaries. So I think if you suggest something like that, then we're kind of limiting the pool. If we have someone that may have experience from a private sector development. So I definitely don't know if that is something that I would like to see. So, you know, those are the 2 immediate things that jump out, because I think that would kind of create a smaller pool of individuals if we limit it to municipal community development.
So, Mr. McCoy, you're suggesting we just eliminate the word municipal and
Correct.
leave in community development. Okay.
Right, correct.
Ms. Miller Anderson?
So one thing that kind of sticks out to me is there's no years of experience listed on here, unless I
Right.
overlooked it. Within that, it just says about the education requirements, and that's basically just taking courses. So we're basically saying that they need to have a major coursework and obviously a master's degree, but it doesn't talk about having any experience doing the job. So I think that needs to be updated to point that fact out, because we don't want to just get, we'll get all kinds of responses from that. I think we need to kind of narrow it down a little bit, at least require, whether it's 5 years of, whether it's assistant city manager or some sort of managerial role, and having, of course, the experience in dealing with this type of matter. But I can't see having someone that just shows up with a degree and have never worked in that field.
I think we would all agree on that. Does anybody
Mr.
disagree
McCoy
about
would
that?
probably go and get
Mr.
the course
McCoy.
necessary so
No,
that he can.
Mr.
no, I
McCoy probably
agree.
wants the job. No, I think we all agree.
Oh, he wants the
We
job.
don't have to take time. Do we all agree? Give me a
Oh, well,
thumbs up.
we can go ahead and just be done with this then if he wants
Hire
the
him.
job.
Yeah. So I think we all agree that we would want somebody with experience. Do we want somebody specifically with CRA experience, or would somebody who has had the role of municipal leadership be appropriate? Does anybody have a preference? Does anybody have a preference?
Whatever
Ms.
Mr. McCoy says, I agree with Mr. McCoy in terms of having some requirements
I can't hear you,
for,
Ms. Lanier. What was that?
Stop.
You cut out. Repeat that.
He agreed with you.
I agree with you. I often agree with you, Mr. McCoy. Don't say that. I agree in terms of making sure, and especially agreeing with Councilwoman Kashama Miller Anderson, in the fact that we need to be able to have someone with experience, someone who, just doesn't come in the door with a degree, but at least have some experience in doing this kind of work. Were they a CRA director before? Have they worked for the CRA? It's not just municipalities, but I think that the CRA is a very distinct job. It's a very distinct boundary. So being able to, have those qualifications as a part of it will kind of narrow down who we get in our pool.
So, Mr. Haygood, would you be sure that that component is added to the job description, that of having, let's say, 3 years experience, 3 to 5 years experience as a CRA director, Ms. Miller Anderson, and then Mr. McCoy?
6 and 5.
Yeah, I'm saying 5 as well. A minimum of 5.
Minimum.
Thank you. Mr. Haygood, a minimum.
I would also suggest that as far as the salary is concerned, that you may want a salary survey done.
I was just going to suggest that myself. Yeah, could you make sure that we get some information about the salaries of comparable positions in the county, let's say? Mr. McCoy.
But, do we really need a salary survey? Because clearly we look at, what we do know is this.
No.
Advertisement.
Mr. McCoy, throw a figure out. What do you think?
What I'm saying is,
It's
I don't know
125.
that we should wait to have a salary survey done. I mean, but if you just look at one of the proposals that came back, I think I seen it started at 125. Actually started at 175 up to 200. Now, I'm not saying that should be the threshold, but at the very minimum, I believe that our current interim is at 150 right now. I would like to. Right, I would like to start at a minimum.
Do we know what the current person in that position is making now?
150.
I do not.
Okay. So do we want to make that
You said 150, so we at least start the basic or the minimum at 150.
Right, so we'll go 150 to 175 or something. Ms. Miller Anderson.
I don't think we should just be throwing numbers out. We need to make sure that it's commensurate with their, degree, their experience. And I'd rather have some other references to go by and not determine that tonight, just throwing numbers out without actually, having some facts to back it up.
I actually would too. I would prefer that we do what Mr. Haygood suggested, and that is some sort of a salary survey, so we see what comparable communities are offering. I think that would be very
And we're not,
valuable.
when you
And
say survey,
no,
we're not talking about doing a
No, somebody gets on the phone and
well,
finds out what people are making. You know, not a formal.
and just check with the FRA.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a big,
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't have to take very long. It doesn't have to.
And then we
stop
can
the
have a
process.
further discussion on the next.
Yeah,
Okay, so what I'll do is bring back, try to revise, taking your comments into consideration, try to revise the qualifications, job statement, bring it back to you so you can review it and approve it.
okay.
One of the things I think we really need, you really need to address is how, first, I guess the consensus is that you do want to use a professional executive search. And then number two, how are you going to go through the process of selecting the 3 proposals that you got?
Madam Chair, I think at the last,
Lanier.
I think at the last meeting, I mean, I didn't, but the board agreed that they wanted an executive search. That was agreed upon already.
Ms. Miller Anderson. Ms. Miller Anderson.
Madam Chair, when we selected prior to Mr. Evans, when we did the national search before, if you get with HR, I can tell you the process that we went through when we did the initial, that's somebody else's background.
Yeah.
If somebody can mute.
Lawson.
Get with HR. Lawson, can you mute, or is that, who is that?
Not me. Nobody's here with me.
I don't have anybody.
Okay.
It was Lawson. Go ahead. Go
If
ahead.
you can get with HR, back in 2017, when we did the national, or actually 16, we did national search for the city manager position. They can give you exactly how we went through that whole process. I mean, it's clearly defined, so that would be a starting point. And if we want to modify it from there, we can. But if you just get that from them, they can explain to you how that was done.
Oh, okay,
Mr.
so
Hagan, will you take care of that?
yes, how are you going to make the selection on which of the search firms that have responded? How do you want to do that?
Did we get a recommendation from the city's HR? I know she narrowed it down, or these were the 3 that responded. Did she have a preference for any one of these?
No, ma'am, we didn't discuss that.
I mean, I would like to know what, she's a professional. I would like to know her opinion about this at least.
Who's this?
Mr. McCoy?
Who? I'm sorry, I didn't understand who you were referring to as the professional.
She's our HR director, Ms. Dickerson.
Okay,
Ms. Dickerson.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, unless do you have a strong preference for one of these? They all look like reputable firms. They have, it would be difficult, I think, for us as non-HR professionals to make a determination about this unless you have a strong preference for one of these.
Well, I just like the one firm that wants a commission. I don't think that's.
The 25%, I agreed. I don't like
like-
that much either. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
you
doesn't.
Doesn't, I didn't like that either. Do you want to then just ask Ms. Dickerson if she has any recommendations from the one that wanted 25 and the one that wanted 20?
Do I want to? No.
You want to make a decision. You want to decide.
Yes.
Okay. Which one would you prefer?
The one that wanted the 25.
Okay, let me look at that. That would be,
But before we commit to it, Mr. Haygood is the individual that we're designating to see this whole acquisition of the search firm, or is it going to be Ms. Dickerson, or are we really allowed to ask Ms. Dickerson to do something CRA related? I mean, I'm trying to understand.
Mr. Haygood?
Well, quite frankly, she was very helpful. This was a list of the executive search firms that she had dealt with in the past. And she's been very helpful. One of the issues we did have is that her staff, she's really understaffed right now. So that was a difficult, but she was very helpful. I can go back to her, ask her for a suggestion that the board wants her to recommend one of the firms and bring it back to you at the next meeting. Whatever your preference.
Madam Chair, I mean, we have to follow the procurement process. So I think that the procurement process is whatever top 3 we choose, then we, get the lowest bidder or the best possible fit for what we're looking for. So I think at the very least, we have to follow the city and the CRA's procurement policy.
Anyone else? Mr. Lawson, you've been notably quiet.
I honestly was in agreement that I don't want the commission-based agency, but I don't have a preference of the two. I wouldn't mind HR taking a look at either one and giving a recommendation.
Okay.
I
Ms.
say,
Lanier?
Madam Chair, I just say issue an RFQ and shortlist, and then interview and select.
No,
You do an RFQ.
No. Right now, we're deciding, you mean issue an RFQ? Right now, we're deciding which of these three firms. I think seems to be consensus that we didn't want the one that wanted 25% of the salary.
Right.
So we have two remaining. We have
right.
two remaining.
So you said, right, there was some question about, you didn't want 25, you didn't want 20. So the top three that we say we're going to go with, do an RFQ and then just go from there.
I'm not sure that we don't have to do an RFQ. I think we're at the point now where we might consider asking.
Just select one and that's it?
Yeah, we will ask for a recommendation from our city HR person if she's willing to do that, because again, it's not a CR.
But I don't think that we can just pick one without the procurement process that's in place. We can't just arbitrarily say we want to go with this particular unless we follow the city and the CRA's procurement policy. And if we do it like that, then so be it. I'm just thinking about the procurement policy.
I think that these were the only firms that responded to her request. Am I right, Mr. Haygood?
That's correct.
Yeah. So in essence, she did put something out there, and these were the three firms that responded, and now we would be at liberty, I would believe, to make a choice amongst these three. Mr. Lawson, and then
that's a part of the procurement process, and if it's legal, then fine.
Okay. Is it legal, Mr. Haygood?
Yes, ma'am. You sent out proposals to 13 firms that are identified.
Right. So we don't have to do another RFP or anything. We have these three. Mr. Lawson and then Mr. McCoy.
Madam Chair, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, before we send it back to HR, would we ask for a recommendation from HR from these firms and then make a decision on our next at our next CRA meeting as to which one based on the would that be the direction that would be going? In the event that
does anyone object to taking, are you suggesting that we let her go forward, or do you want it to come back to us again for us to say, yes, we agree this is the firm? Is that what you're asking?
That's the point. I don't want it.
You don't want it to slow down?
I don't want it to slow down. I wouldn't want to bring it back before us with her recommendation. That would be my point. I wouldn't have to wait to a meeting so that we can start the process. You're
suggesting that we ask her for her recommendation and then now say to her, you decide and you go with the firm that you have chosen. Is that what you're suggesting?
Madam Chair, you can't do that. You have to make.
Mr. Haygood says we can't do that. Okay.
Right.
So we do have to slow it down a tad. We have to ask her for her recommendation and then we have to approve her recommendation, right, Mr. Haygood?
Madam Chair,
that's what Mr. Haygood is saying, Mr. McCoy. Let Mr. Lawson finish and then I'll go to you, Mr. McCoy.
Well, then, Madam Chair, if that's the fact of we'd have to slow down the process, then I would change my stance in regards to picking one of the agencies as opposed to sending it back to HR. I would like to actually select one of the agencies to move forward, which would be the lowest responsive. Based upon their scope of work and details, I wouldn't mind going with the $20,000 agency.
Okay, and that's McCoy, and then Mr. McCoy, and then Ms. Miller Anderson. McCoy.
Okay, so if I can just provide an additional context to what Commissioner Lawson said, in even looking at this, I don't want to go back. First of all, this is under the threshold to have to do anything competitive. What we did was do a solicitation. So even at $25,000, that falls under the administration's purview. So that's not necessarily a requirement. And the one company who I guess Commissioner Lawson was suggesting would have been Government HR USA. And I particularly, if you look at the attachments relative to the advertisement and that they actually put out on behalf of the organization, I really like that. And it seemed like it took a lot of commitment in it. And even further, if you look at the organization's, what do we call this? Proposal. I think, I think it really lays out every level of, from start to finish, and it even lists the consultant's biography in here. So, and even when you look at I think it's the last 3 or 4 pages where it talks about their particular professional engagements and their participation, and even some of the positions that they fill. However, I didn't see a whole lot about maybe 7 or so relative to the state of Florida, but I think they have a wide variety of executive positions that they recruited from, most of which are county and city management and director positions, relative and very closely to what we have here. So, I particularly like this. One additional thing I would add is if we choose to go with whichever one, which personally is my preference to go with government, Gov HR USA, that we also add in the notation that we seen earlier of the different state of Florida, different leagues, Florida legal cities, and those other agencies where it's advertised, and require that, as much as possible, even though I'm not going to favor anybody, but I think it really helps to have someone that's relatively familiar with the development and the current market here in Florida, more specifically in South Florida, when it comes to development. And that's why I want those advertised. I would like to see that they also advertise them in those, I guess, that same list that's on exhibit, on the attachment.
Yeah, it's exhibit
ED.
C, exhibit C.
Yeah, C.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Ms. Miller Anderson. Your mic.
No, I'll pass for now. I'll pass for now.
Anybody else have a preference? Mr. Lawson?
Madam Chair, I just want to add to that point. I do agree with those searches. That was one of the things that was attractive for me with the search firm, with I believe it was governments or GGA, with the additional locations that they were advertising in. But if we can get the original firm that's priced a little bit lower to actually add those searches into those other locations, I think that'd be our best bet.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hager.
I guess of Mr. McCoy. Yes, it is. If it's under 25,000, your executive director has the authority to enter into the contract. But it's still being procured from a competitive standpoint. So I don't know how you want to do this. We could, if you want to select a firm, we could bring a contract back to you, hopefully at the next meeting, and maybe at that time can address some of the other concerns you have, including a proposed salary range and a proposed scope of services, or either.
So what would the purpose of the contract coming back to us if this is within the authority of the executive director?
If that's what you want to do, so you're going to select the firm and then just have him sign the contract?
I mean, do you have a reason why that's not a good idea, is what I'm asking?
No, just trying to get it straight as to what you want to follow, what process you want.
Well, I thought specifically that it was good that everybody came in under the $25,000. So I don't know, unless there's some other member that wants to see anything. I mean, clearly, I would just ask that whoever we decide on, that they do a ranking or something of that sort, but we still be provided with the, like, obviously I don't want them to send us the credentials and the submissions of somebody that clearly don't meet the minimum qualifications,
Well, Mr. McCoy, if I can suggest that did we not say previously that we would try to use the same procedure that we used when Ms. Miller Anderson suggested back in 2016 when we did a search for city manager, which seems like it had a good outcome.
Well, I know I know she's definitely been around, but I don't even know what that was.
But
Well,
that's why I asked for Mr. Haygood to get that, and I was hoping that next meeting that could come, or he can
Yes,
send it to
yes,
us, you know, via
yes,
email, and
yes.
she would know. But I understand we're trying to move a little fast, but I don't want us to, I don't think we should just say, here, this is what you do.
Right.
And I don't know about Mr. Evans signing the I mean, he eventually will, but I think it's for his position that he's currently in. I think it needs to come back to us.
It
That's
does.
just my thought on it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking if Mr. Haygood can reach out to them, he can go ahead and get that information and provide it to us, and then we could, you know, have this next meeting. You know, unless there's something I don't know about, I don't, you know, well, you do have an item 8A that you want to speak on, so maybe that
But
may have something
I
to do
also-
with the push. I don't know.
Ms.
Madam
Lanier,
Chair,
and then I have a comment.
I just also think that we need to bring it back so that we'll know what we are agreeing to.
Right.
And also that, you know, when you rush, you don't want to miss anything. I don't want to rush too much, so much that we miss something. So you just bring the contract back, we agree to it, and we keep it moving.
Right. I myself would like, I think that this, and Mr. McCoy, if I can ask you, you referenced a different name. I'm looking at CPS. CPS, if that's the one that was the $25,000 proposal?
No, I went with the 20,000, the Gov HR USA.
Oh, okay, then you were in agreement with Mr. Lawson. I thought you were
Well,
not in
yeah.
agreement, but it sounded like you were in agreement with him.
Yes.
So, okay.
I don't know what
I personally would like to have the recommendation from HR, if she's willing to provide us with a recommendation as to the comparative points between this one, the CPS one, and the other one. Can I get your indulgence to allow that to happen? It won't slow it down that much longer.
No worries. That's
Ms.
fine,
Miller?
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Miller Anderson?
Okay, so are we agreeing that we're gonna have this on the next agenda so it can come back and Mr. Hager could get the information, and then also we get the recommendation from Ms. Dickerson?
Yes.
And then we make the decision on the next meeting, or we come in for the next meeting and we're just going with the contract of,
Mr. Hager, what's your recommendation?
Well, I suppose that you're trying to get a suggestion from her as far as ranking. So
No,
I guess it'd be,
Yes,
would
as far
be-
as ranking the agents.
yes, ma'am. It'd be similar to analogous to you having a screening committee, maybe a screening committee of one. She would make a recommendation. And I assume that since you want to go with that person, we could probably try to bring a contract back at that time also.
Okay. Is that agreeable to everybody?
so
Sounds
you're
like-
gonna do it all in the same meeting?
I mean,
How are you
find
gonna
out.
do that?
I'm sorry.
I don't understand. So we're gonna get the information before the meeting, so when we come to the meeting, we have that information, or you're gonna give it to us then, her
What?
recommendation?
How about the contract?
You're gonna bring the contract on the same night that you're gonna provide the information on the recommendation?
Yes.
But you'll provide it to us in advance. It'll be
The
backup.
contract, yes,
It'll
yes,
be
when it's published,
It'll be
when it's-
backup. It'll be backup for the meeting, the meeting agenda. It'll be backup.
Right. There would be a
Right.
a contract attached.
And what
I
about
think
the
that-
recommendation?
Well,
Well,
the contract,
the
the contract would be for the one that she recommends,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, but what if it's the other one? I mean, we're saying Gov HR right now, but if she says the other one, I mean, are we gonna make a change that night, or? I
Well,
don't.
I guess you need to decide how you want to move forward. If you want a recommendation for her and then you still make a decision, that's one thing. If you are saying, well, you're going to go with whatever her recommendation is, then we could do it with one contract. Whatever, trying to address the timing and all, but it's really up to you, whatever you want to do.
Well, if can the contract not be boilerplate to the extent that you bring us back, you say, Ms. Dickerson says, there's only X or Y, okay? Ms. Dickerson says X. I have prepared a contract that you fill in the blank with X. Oh, you don't like X, then fill in the blank with Y.
I don't know if that'll work.
Okay. Try to be trying to move things along. Why wouldn't it work?
Well, I mean, people have different interests in the contract. One firm may not want a provision that we've negotiated. It's kind of hard to do a complete boilerplate. I mean, a lot of the stuff obviously will be boilerplate.
Okay, all right. So, Ms. Miller Anderson, would you prefer then to have this in two steps? Step one, Mr. Haygood comes back to us with the recommendation that Ms. Dickerson has made with regard to these two entities, and then follows on at a future meeting with the contract.
Yeah, and even if, remember, when are we scheduled to have a special meeting? What is that, this Friday?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you wanted to have two special meetings, but to get the recommendation, but I'm just thinking if we could have another meeting at some point just to get the recommendation and decide what we want to do maybe. And then on that actual meeting.
Yeah, if she could do it by Friday, it puts her under a little bit of pressure. Today's Wednesday. I mean, she'd only have 2 days, day and a half. If she could give us her recommendation as to which of these firms she would prefer we use by Friday, it would certainly expedite the process. And since we're having a meeting set anyway, we could add that. Oh wait, now we can't. We'd have to have two separate meetings: a CRA meeting and a council meeting.
And I wasn't saying it has to be this Friday. We could do a special meeting before the city meeting, or around that time, just to get that answer if we're saying we need to have the information. I'm not in favor of just doing it, getting it, and then agreeing that night.
Okay.
And so how we're going to have the contract for it the same night. I understand we're trying to move fast, but I think we're moving a little too fast unless somebody can explain to me how we're going to do this.
Yeah. So, Mr. Haygood, let's plan on having a special CRA meeting on the same night. That's the 20th, right? Am I right about that date? Yeah. Let's plan on having a special CRA meeting with this one item on the 20th. Either before or after the council meeting.
Okay, I don't understand.
We're looking for Ms. Dickerson to weigh in on these two entities. Which one does she recommend we use? And then we will say yay or nay on the 20th very quickly. Yes or no, we accept her recommendation. And then you can move forward with developing a contract for that entity. Mr. McCoy has a comment. I can see it on his face.
No, I don't have anything.
Oh, all right.
I'm just like, okay.
Okay, he's getting tired.
Let me ask you this, and I hate to kind of belabor this, but what if she comes back with something that's not agreeable? Then,
well, it's only two. It's not agreeable. Then you can say no. I don't like that.
Well, let's flip a coin right now. Then, if that's the case,
that's the purpose of having two meetings, though.
We're not.
That's what I'm saying.
The purpose of having two meetings is that. Well, that is the purpose of having two meetings. We need to have two meetings because Mr. Haygood is saying that he can't do a boilerplate contract. We would have to approve X or Y. Then at a subsequent meeting, he will come back to us and give us a contract for the one that we approved based on Ms. Dickerson's recommendation.
And which are the two firms you've narrowed it down to?
The one that was 25 is CPS HR Consulting. The one we threw out is GGA, Simone Gans and Associates. Which is the other one, Mr. McCoy? I can't seem to find it in my.
HR USA.
Thank you, Gov HR USA.
Somewhere. I mean, it says it in their name. I mean,
I'm looking for it.
Hey, I like their name. Can I make that my selection?
Too many papers. Okay. Did you get that, Mr. Haygood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have we beaten this horse to death enough? Okay. Can we move along to the next item? Mr. Haygood, are you satisfied with all of the things we've done so far? You all right now?
Yes, ma'am. I just hope I can get it all back to you by your next.
Okay. Good. Item, we don't have to make any votes on this, right? We're all good. Okay. Were there any public comments? Where's Tamara? We should probably stop at some point. It's 10:09. We should at least take public comments before it gets too late. Tamara
there were no
Shirley?
public comments for the item.
Okay. Any public comments for the meeting?
There is one general public comment later on.
Why don't we get that out of the way so we can move on
Okay.
unimpeded?
This public comment is from Fane Losman. My comments are addressed specifically to Councilperson Lanier, Lawson, McCoy, and Miller Anderson. The four of you have the responsibility to replace the current chairperson immediately. Ms. Botel, after she was elected to office, stated that the council was, quote, dumber than a box of rocks, unquote. Ms. Botel also stated that Lynn Hubbard was, quote, mentally retarded, unquote, and never should have been elected to office. Botel's despicable comments prelude her not only from acting as the chairperson of the CRA, but reflect poorly on the Singer Island residents that voted her into office.
Is that the extent of his comment? Thank you so much. Let me clarify that I never said either of those things, and I think my colleagues on council know better and know who to believe. So moving right along to item number, let's see, 11. Let me see which ones did we get rid of?
Box of rocks, huh?
Box of rocks. Hey, dumber than. We're on number
9.
Thank you, 9. And this is going to be a quick update.
Townhouse project update.
Yes. Ms. Jenkins.
And this will just be very quick if I can.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Did we forget 8A?
Oh, I'm sorry, we did. I'm so sorry. Yes, thank you for reminding me. 8A. Could you read it, Mr. McCoy? I think it was your motion, it was your item.
Okay, so I wanted to have a discussion on relieving the current interim executive director of that position and the interim executive director reverting back to the director of planning position in the CRA. And, you know, my reasoning is mostly, I really believe that we can go in a different direction as far as the leadership, and I've kind of lost confidence in our current executive director. And I wanted to bring this to the board at the last meeting. And, you know, there was some concerns about it not being posted on the agenda. So, you know, I thought it was an automatic function that it would be there, but apparently not. So I wanted to have that discussion.
Thank you, Mr.
Can
Miranda.
Tamara mute her mic because the shuffle of the paper was kind of, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
So, you know, it's not, I guess my concern is if we take action on removing the interim executive director, it means absolutely nothing until we decide on who the designee or who the person or the individual that we decide should take this interim appointment until we fill the permanent executive director position. So I wanted to have that conversation begin with the members of the board.
Anyone want to comment? Ms. Miller Anderson.
So my question, I know you just kind of touched on it. What would you propose, or who would you propose be the person to step in until we fill the position? Who would take on that responsibility?
Well, the mayor looks really good in that suit right now. No, however, I did want to have that discussion with the board. Literally, you know, I don't want to go into speaking of, you know, things that occurred in the past, but I think certainly we should have the discussion. And my idea was to select someone currently within the department so there wouldn't be a huge transition or learning curve for someone. And more particularly, obviously, I don't see Ms. Jenkins on here. She's still on? Well, her camera's probably off. But considering either someone that's currently within the CRA, either the project manager or Ms. Jenkins. So I don't know what their current roles is, but yeah, those were at least what I wanted to begin the conversation with.
Ms. Miller Anderson.
So for me, I'm not comfortable with that. I do know that we are trying to fill the position, and I'm sure Mr. Evans probably, you know, I'm sure he was probably sick tonight, but I'm sure there was, you know, some thoughts about the situation from the last meeting, and that's fine. But he's been in that role for quite a while now. I think to continue him in that role for the next few weeks or month, for the short period of time that we would have to get someone in permanently, I think would be appropriate. However, if he's, he doesn't want to remain in that position, that's a whole nother conversation. But if he's willing to stay in that position until we fill it permanently, then I would be inclined to go with that.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
just
Miller
my
Anderson.
position on it.
Mr. Lawson, do you have a comment? Turn your mic on. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. I would not feel comfortable moving forward with removing Mr. Evans at this point, being that we've started the process, initiated the process for a new executive director. Being that we don't have anyone to fill the position, I think Ms. Anita Jenkins is capable and our project manager, but she's also over and running our CDC. So I wouldn't want Ms. Jenkins taken away from that progress and those steps to step in as executive director currently. And just because I don't know the structure of makeup of the CRA that would have somebody capable of being executive for the next 1, 2, 3 months that it takes us to find an executive director, I prefer to ask Mr. Evans to remain in that role.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Ms. Lanier?
I'm waiting for a motion.
Okay, Mr. McCoy, do you want to make a motion?
So is that the extent of the conversation?
Well, I am in agreement with Ms. Miller Anderson, Mr. Lawson. Ms. Lanier hasn't weighed in yet, but I don't see any reason to remove Mr. Evans from his position. I feel likewise that although I have complete confidence in Ms. Anita Jenkins to run anything that she put her mind to, I think that she's quite busy running the function that she has right now. And Mr. Scott Evans has years of experience in this position, and I would prefer to leave him in that position unless he chooses to move on. Leave him in that position until we find a permanent replacement. But if you would like to make a motion, we can entertain it.
Okay. Well, I move that we put Ms. Anita Jenkins in the interim executive director position until permanently filled.
Does anyone second that motion? It dies for lack of a second. Okay, thank you, Mr. McCoy. Moving right along now to item number, where am I? Now we're at item number 11. Avenue
9.
No, 9, I'm sorry, 9, Townhouse Project Update, Townhouse Project.
Okay. Commissioners, I have a very brief update, and I hope you can see my screen now for our Townhouse Project.
Not yet. But we have it in our backup.
Hold on a minute.
I can see it now.
Okay. Back here. Okay. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The Townhouse Project is something that we've been working on for a few months, and I think you all were very excited about the idea of bringing homeownership to 11th Street between Wright Street and Avenue E. There you see the proposed site, which goes west to east on 11th Street, and it fronts residential structures across the street. Architects have been engaged, and you see the proposed site located there with the proposed site plan, one of the proposed site plans. And we wanted to share that with you. In the packet that you have, there are 2 illustrations, and we're working on several others to fine tune what you see there, which would have from 12 to 16 units in 2 buildings. We're on track in terms of the timeline, and the proposed units would range from about 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. You see there the 3-story illustration, which is 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a garage. And the interesting thing is that the architects were able to design the site so that the units could front load from the back. So you would not have cars on the street. The streets would be walkable and garage there for cars to enter from the back. There's a little courtyard, there are balconies, and a small patio on the back. This illustration is a two-story structure, which would give us fewer units because they're wider units and slightly smaller, but it's still a very beautiful project incorporating the old Florida architecture. And I just wanted to bring this to you to get some feedback, see what you thought, if you like the direction that we're going in, so we can continue to move forward. On our timeline, we finished our initial tasks, and we're at the point where we would begin to share the concepts with the community as we promised them we'd bring them ideas before we move forward any further. We've also engaged partners to begin the environmental review process. So I'll just stop there and see if there are any comments.
Any comments? Mr. McCoy.
Ms. Jenkins, your last slide, the second from the last one that had the timeline, I was trying to take a glimpse of it. But while that's coming up, I do have actually a few questions. So what kind of construction are we talking about? Because I was trying to determine what kind of siding that was on that building, and I couldn't figure it out. Is that prefabricated or pre-built or something like that?
These would be CBS construction, and the illustration probably shows some hardy siding. We've not gotten to that point to decide on materials, but the overall structure would be CBS construction.
I'm sorry, can you define what that is?
Concrete block structure.
Oh, okay. Well, so the 3-story versus the 2-story, what's the difference in the price?
We
don't know the exact amount, but if you could guess a range.
Well, the average price would be about $250,000 to construct, and depending upon the sizes, probably ranging from about $245 to $275, depending on where the unit is in the overall buildings, etc. But with an average price of $250,000. With subsidy, we're hoping to bring them to market for buyers at a little bit less than $200,000, so we could market them more to a low mod buyer in the area. They would be workforce units.
Okay. And the April through May says pre-development financing and underwriting. Is that for the actual purchaser, the buyer? I'm not sure I understand what that means.
That would be for the project itself. COVID has slowed us down a little bit in terms of moving forward, but we're hoping that we can catch up or make up some of the time and stay on target. But that is for the construction. You know, we do have the Riviera Beach Home Buyers Club, and in the club, we have buyers who are working towards pre-qualifying to be able, hopefully, to buy some of these units. So that's a separate but parallel process.
Does this require any zoning changes?
I don't believe that it does. We're not at that point yet, but it fits with, well, it does fit within the existing zoning. I don't think we'll have any. We might have to come back for some leeway from the city, depending upon where the easements are in that area.
Okay, and one last question. Phase 1 underway. Can you explain what that is?
Phase 1 is the townhouse project itself. Ideally, we'd like to develop other portions of that block. You're going to hear, and after I finish, the Avenue E update, and we want this project to fit into the overall concept and the direction for the Avenue E corridor study that you all are looking at. And this project would just be phase one. There'd be a phase two that might include some smaller workforce apartments or condos and neighborhood retail on the bottom floor.
Okay, that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Chair?
you, Ms. Jenkins. Yes, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jenkins, the procurement process of your contractors, are you going to be using local participation?
Most definitely, we'd make every effort to have this project accessible and to have participation with local contractors. We always do that.
Okay. Do you have a requirement in place? Of
We're
what
not
percentage is going to be local?
We are not at the point. We'll bring that back and have some input from you, but as much as we can incorporate, I don't have an answer for you tonight, but it would be strongly local subs, local labor, and we'd be marketing to local residents.
So I guess for Mr. Haygood, the legality of us having a higher percentage of local participation than what's in our code, which requires a 15% local participation, are we able to do that with the CDC?
Yes, I mean, it's well, I know that you can, but the CDC board can. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. Yes, the CDC board can require more than the limits that's in the legislation now. In fact, I don't know if Anita plans on using, was it urban? What's the group?
You're talking about urban farmers. The reentry program, though, that labor hopefully will be a part of this project, but we've not structured or discussed the RFP process for proposals. And it would depend upon some of the financing. For instance, if we were to receive federal funding for the number of units, we'd have to follow Section 3 guidelines. For the number of units we're proposing, we'd have to follow Davis-Bacon, and all of those point towards local participation, local hires, etc.
Okay, so as a follow-up, Madam Chair, Ms. Jenkins, based upon the economic recovery plan and what I want to see from the city CRA and the CDC is I would like to push the agenda or push the tape as far as possible. Colleagues, what I mean by local, of course, is starting within the city of Riviera Beach, but then going into Palm Beach County, which is considered an outline and detailed as local. I would want Ms. Jenkins to see if we could do 100% local, if we can legally and possibly move forward with that. Because if we're going to really provide economic recovery for our residents, we have to provide opportunities, jobs, and the ability to be gainfully employed. So if we can actually not only build these townhouses locally, but also have them sold to our workforce here in our city, in our community, I think that's truly kind of empowering the community, the residents, and giving the opportunity for them to be gainfully employed and to live, work, and play here in the city. So if we can truly push for 100% local participation, Ms. Jenkins, that's where I would want to see move forward.
I think the CDC board would be very supportive of doing whatever we can legally do moving forward with that. So we'll make every effort. And we've already been talking with the surrounding neighbors, and they're curious about what's coming. And we've told them that we will include them in the process in terms of having input. And we've said so as well to some local contractors and subs. So we most definitely can do that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Yes.
I think Ms. Lanier first and then Ms. Miller Anderson. Ms. Lanier.
Yes, I just wanted to tell Ms. Jenkins that this is the type of projects that I really, really, really like. But I also want to piggyback off of Councilman Lawson's sentiments in the fact that, when we just had this conversation last week with the housing authority. And nobody can really promise us that we're going to have local participation. I can't really guarantee you that, but I mean, this is our city. This is what we are here to do. We're here to make sure that the people in this city are able to participate in any business that the city does, and also to benefit from what the city does. So I totally agree with you, Ms. Jenkins, in the fact that take this information back to the CDC board. We like the concept. We like the fact that these are things that are considered to be workforce housing. But I also want to reiterate the fact that we thinking about in terms of local participation, thinking about primes. We're thinking about everybody who lives in this city who local participation are it's about this project. And I really like that project, that reentry project, where you use the gentlemen who are returning citizens, and they are they are participating in the development of this city. And who better to be able to give an opportunity to than to local people who are returning citizens to be able to build this city up. So I agree with what you're doing. I just hope that we can do everything that we can to ensure that there is local participation.
And we'll report back to you on a regular basis and let you know how we're doing. So we appreciate the comments.
Thank you. Was there anybody else waiting in the wings here? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Lawson, this was going to be
after Ms. Miller Anderson, she had a comment. I just had a quick question.
Go ahead, Ms.
I just wanted to say I appreciate this project coming along, particularly in that area, because we do need some movement going on over there, because it can, it's been vacant for a while, and a lot of times you have a lot of people just kind of throwing trash and just doing a number of things in the area. So I appreciate that, and I do totally support being able to have as many local participation businesses on this project as possible. Again, I've mentioned this before, Mr. Haga can certainly attest to the fact that I've been trying to give us something on the CRA side. I know we haven't done a disparity study, but there is something that we're able to put into place. Is this something we can do for this project, Mr. Haga, what we've talked about, or what you and Mr. Evans have been working on for about almost 2 years now?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, we had a contract, I think, with someone to provide a sheltered market program, which I think we believe we can institute legally quicker than having to get a disparity study done. And we had intended, I think the intent is to use it on the 2600 project. And once it's in place, we could also use it for this project. I think Scott was in the process of actually negotiating the amount of the contract, and we had a little problem with that. So that should be coming back to you shortly.
Okay, so for the next meeting, our actual meeting on the 27th, the 27th, can you have it on the agenda to bring something back so that even the new people on the council or the commission will know what you're talking about, because we haven't officially brought that information to the board to explain what you're talking about?
Well, I was not negotiating the contract, but I will carry the message to Scott and see that we can get it back to you. If the guy
even if you don't,
I'm sorry.
Even if you don't have the contract, just the concept of what you're talking about doing, it hasn't been explained at all to the commission. So if we get, even if it's just like an update talking about exactly what the process was and what you all are thinking of doing, because that has never come to us.
Okay, and hopefully we'll have the contract itself.
Okay, so for the next meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
The official meeting is 27th? All right, thank you.
Thank you. I have one last comment myself, Anita. I think it's a wonderful project. It looks beautiful. I'm just wondering if there's any kind of pre-apprentice program or rather apprentice program that we could incorporate. It's one thing to say, yes, we want local participation, but I would like to see us, as much as possible, do some kind of a training component so people who are interested in getting into the construction trades have a place where they can practice, unquote. Not that we would want them to be doing anything without supervision, but I think this would be a great opportunity to do an apprenticeship program. So can we talk about that at some point in the future as well?
most definitely, and that's close to what the reentry program is doing. So we'd love to talk with you about that.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move along to item number, now I think we're at 11, am I right? Keep me honest. I would ask, are there any public comments for any of the other items on this agenda?
No, Chair, there are no public
Okay,
comments.
good. So we don't have to ask every time. So we are on.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Well, you do, because technically she's not going to close it until she reads the item.
Okay, you're right. Somebody might.
And it's important that she says that because someone may.
Okay.
sense
You're
that.
right. All right, I'm trying to be quick here. Avenue E, number 11. Madam Clerk?
Avenue E quarter study presentation. The acceptance of public comments is now closed.
Thank you. Heidi? Anita, who's making this presentation?
Okay. We have the KCI team here to give us an update on the Avenue E corridor, and they do have a presentation. So I'll turn it over to Heidi.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to present this project. We're really proud of our work. I know it's a little late in the evening, so if you'll bear with us, we have some pretty exciting things to show you. I'm bringing up my screen right now to share with you. So we have been working on this project for a number of months now. And let's see, I'm trying to get my slides to advance. Here we go. And it's a multidisciplinary approach to the project. We've spent a lot of time on Avenue E. 3 specific teams that we have working together that all come out of our office include our planners who also look at economic development, our landscape architects who look at the streetscape, as well as our engineers who look at everything from stormwater drainage, as well as traffic conditions. What I'm about to tell you is no surprise to you, of course. The current built environment is not ideal for redevelopment right now. There's 6 main points that we identified, and that's the number of vacant lots, the back out parking right onto Avenue E, the lack of a sidewalk network, the lack of the buffering of the outdoor storage areas, non-conforming uses such as auto repair. Non-conforming means it's no longer allowed by the code, and inconsistent signage up and down the corridor. Our scope also had us look at the zoning code to see where we could suggest improvements for specifically Avenue E, as it does have its own zoning designation, which is downtown general. One of the things we found is that it refers to retail is allowed along Avenue E, which is fine, and retail has a broad definition in the definition section of the code. But we like something we saw somewhere else in the code, which is your commercial neighborhood district, which is somewhere away from Avenue E. They actually spell out very specific, and you can see it on the right side of the slide, uses that they want to see in the commercial neighborhood district. So when we met with the community, there was a very distinct and specific vision for Avenue E. So that's an opportunity to spell out the uses in the downtown general. Also to address residential uses. Single family homes are allowed because it broadly in the zoning code allows for residential uses. If we want to make this an urban walkable environment that has both living and working opportunities along it, we might want to not allow new residential uses, but make sure what we do is compatible with the residential, the single family homes, not allow new single family homes, but make sure what we do is compatible with the single family homes that are there. And something else we found is that there's no majority property owner up and down Avenue E. And sometimes that can lead to the conditions that you have here if you don't have one large investment. And we'll talk about that as we go through.
Madam Chair, can we make sure we have 3 commissioners on, please? Thank you. I can't hear you. You're on mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
So,
Go ahead, Heidi, sorry. Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. So we looked at what is available to start spurring redevelopment along Avenue E. One of the things we recommend, which is of course the meat of this project, is to implement and construct the streetscape using public funds or grant money. We feel that the commitment from the city would incentivize developers to come in, and your return on investment will be huge as developers increase the tax value of those properties. So the nice thing is I'm not necessarily recommending that you make a very hard decision, because the city code already allows the city council to enact a assessment along any street for the construction of sidewalks. So a big part of the project that we're recommending is actually sidewalks. So we think that you should take advantage of this section of the code, which is 2992, and perhaps consider some kind of assessment either on the front end or the back end of projects in order to help fund the project. We think it's important to invest in identification or street signage, and I'll show you opportunities for that as we go through our drawings. We think the CRA should incentivize the combining of parcels and developing on larger parcels. So if a developer wants to come in and buy up a whole block, there might be incentives. When we talk about incentives, we don't always talk about money incentives. And I know in CRAs, that's what the first thing we think about, but there's other ways to incentivize developers. Time is money for them. So streamlining the process or allowing relief from setback requirements or other development regulations might be an incentive that a developer is looking for, and not just money towards their project. And also we recommend identifying parcels, which I'll show you a couple of them, that the CRA should consider for purchase and to enter into public-private partnerships. These are actually two areas where we've identified opportunities for public-private partnerships. On the left side of your screen, you see between 19th and 17th, the city already owns that large vacant parcel, as well as, and then to the east of that is the Miami subs, to give you reference. The parcel directly south of that is owned by one property owner from Broadway all the way to Avenue E, and the property appraiser has that valued about 1.3 million right now. We think there's an opportunity by combining these lots and entering into some kind of agreement with the developer that it's a nice chunk of land. Even Miami subs could stay there, but there's opportunity for redevelopment. I'm going to play a video for you shortly of our design, and I'll show you some really neat opportunities that could happen there. The other opportunity for public-private partnership might be right there at Blue Heron and Avenue E. Our design considers that a gateway and an entrance into Avenue E, and by really controlling what happens at this entrance through a public-private partnership, you're also going to set the tone for the rest of the block. We have some recommendations for changes to the way it is regulated through either the zoning code or policy. Back out parking should be no longer allowed to exist. The existence of back out parking should not delay the streetscape project from construction eventually. We recommend that the city and the CRA allow existing businesses to use the proposed on-street parking that I'm going to show you, and just let businesses start using that on-street parking for now. I'm thinking of the auto parts stores and the smaller businesses that are there. We think that it should be a requirement to buffer outdoor storage areas and also to sunset, meaning to set a time when they are no longer allowed to exist. We talked with staff and looking at being aggressive about 3 to 5 years, and these need to go away. The same thing with auto repair businesses. There's other opportunities in the city for those businesses to exist, and with the proposed streetscape, Avenue E is no longer the place for them. Sunset and consistent signage. These type of programs already exist along North Lake Boulevard Overlay District, which is US 1 through through North Palm Beach and the other smaller cities around there, that they all have a sunset of inconsistent signage. As I mentioned before, limiting single-family homes and the intensification of single-family homes. And what we think should happen is that all new development should be 4 units or more. So you'll have a bigger bang for your buck with investment. I mentioned the permitted uses before. We think you should expand those permitted uses. There's an opportunity already in the code that as the city council, you can have waivers and not variances, which also streamlines the process for the developers. And this is sometimes hard pill to swallow. I myself, I'm a former city manager and a former planning director, so I know how scary this could be. But sometimes it's time for code enforcement and the building official to get a little more involved and to look at unsafe structures and start to remove structures that don't contribute to Avenue E and through the existing laws on the books. So we also looked for opportunities for connectivity from Avenue E to make it more of that urban hub to play off of the existing residential neighborhood. We identified employment areas and recreation areas as well as transportation. One of the biggest stumbling blocks for this connectivity, again, this is no surprise to you, is the lack of continuous sidewalks along Avenue E. This picture isn't staged. It's not something that we went looking for, just one day of field work. I was out there for about an hour and I came across 3 wheelchair users in the street, as well as pedestrians, a young lady in a Publix uniform walking to work in the street because there was no sidewalk for her to use. Also, the opportunity for enhanced pedestrian crosswalks exists, and that's in our design. Our proposed design has a very strong emphasis on the pedestrian and bicycle user because we believe that is reflective of the existing community, and we want to enhance that existing need. Long term, as the streetscape comes together, we would like to recommend that the CRA, the city, reach out to Palmtran about bringing the route onto Avenue E. There's an opportunity with Route 30 as well as Route 21, and we talked to staff about this as well. Introducing transit along Avenue E, once it's more built out, will also lend to its success. And of course, there's the opportunity for connection to the Boys and Girls Club, the parks that exist, and also the Marina Center. So this is the pretty stuff and how does it happen? So we put together this map that starts here at the the north end of Avenue E at Blue Heron and goes all the way down to 10th Street, which is our boundary. It's a little less than a mile. What you see on your screen is not necessarily a zoning map or a future land use map, but instead a use map. And the idea is when the CRA staff or you as the board meet with potential investors and developers, we recommend that you follow kind of this pattern of the type of uses that should go along Avenue E. And our streetscape is designed to reflect this with on-street parking, roundabouts, bulb outs, and those type of things. So I'm going to walk you through our streetscape. We have 4 sub areas. Just dividing it makes it easier for us to do the study. Starting at Blue Heron and going to 22nd. Starting right there at Blue and Heron, we think there's an opportunity for a townhouse development and mixed use type property. This is also where we think there's an opportunity for a public-private partnership along here. So when you go to our streetscape, what happens here at Blue Heron is we're proposing that you do a median here using the existing right-of-way. The right-of-way along this area is 60 feet, and we're proposing about a 10-foot median. And what that does is it creates an entrance feature. It says there's something special in this neighborhood, as well as it helps slow traffic as it comes, traffic comes around the corner. As I go through the design, you'll see that on most intersections, we have paver crosswalks, and I'll show you also how that can be implemented as we go through this design. The full right-of-way of 68 feet, which is your widest right-of-way, takes place between 25th and 24th. And we believe that there's an opportunity here for some street trees to be introduced, sidewalks, and as well as on-street parking. The same design continues all the way down the street. Whenever there's an opportunity to do on-street parking, we recommend it. I want to point out that all of our designs respect the existing single-family homes along the street and do not encroach onto their properties to the best of our ability, and we don't put on-street parking in front of the existing single-family homes. So the next sub area would be between 22nd and 17th. You have the large house of worship that currently exists over there, but we believe this is an opportunity for your major commercial hub. Some of the other opportunities that exist here, here at 19th, where you see this long green strip, is where the convenience store is. When we met with the public, there was a lot of talk about the need for a park, and we identified this as possibly an opportunity for a park, as opposed to introducing a commercial use and backing up to the existing single-family homes, making this into some kind of park. Over here, between 19th and 17th, are those lots that I pointed out to you, where the city owns this lot, and these lots are owned by the same owner. We're recommending, and you'll see it in our design, a path go from Broadway to Avenue E that would then connect through a bike path to the park over here, so that there was connectivity back to Broadway and a multi-use path. So this is the streetscape of that area, beginning down on 22nd. Coming down the street, we have the landscaping, the pavers. We also have bulb outs here, which will slow down traffic. And we found an opportunity, this also came from the community meeting, to introduce a traffic circle along Avenue E. Then when you come down here, this property here is where we're proposing the park. So we have a large bulb out here. And this is where we're proposing the multi-use path. With the joint ownership between the city and the CRA, bringing a developer in, it will be easier to get some kind of amenity like this path done. Moving on to the next block, we're recommending commercial as well as opportunities for mixed use or townhomes. The streetscape remains very similar to what I've shown you so far, also respecting those single family homes that exist while introducing the street trees and the bulb outs and landscaping. And then finally, the southern area of Avenue E, as Ms. Jenkins just presented to you over here, there's an opportunity, be it for commercial mixed use or townhome, as well as opportunities for commercial. The only zoning change that would be required by our recommendations would be between 11th and 10th. And I know that the CRA staff is also studying this area. It is currently zoned industrial. We don't think that it's the best use for there. And we're actually recommending townhomes go down here as well. The streetscape here has an opportunity for on-street parking. So that is consistent with the townhomes that you just saw that would have rear-loaded driveways, so there would be no need for driveway cuts right along the street here. We found an opportunity to put in another roundabout, and the bike lanes that go along Avenue E would come down 11th Street because that's where the downtown bike path ends. So to go back to what the intersections might look like, we talked to staff about doing pavers or decorative painting in the intersections. My recommendation is always to go with pavers over painting. The painting doesn't seem to last as long, and also to find opportunities for public art all along Avenue E. Part of our scope of work also included architectural standards so that there would be a consistency of architecture and the uses, and it would be compatible with the streetscape. All of these also came out of our public outreach. So the first style that we're recommending is that Florida coastal style, Key West style. What you have here are rear-loaded townhomes. All of them are designed to meet the code requirements as well as our streetscape. And then here we have a different townhome product, which is actually 3 stories with the driveways in the front. Moving on, we recommend a Mediterranean revival type style for the 1-story commercial. Of course, it can be further ornamented with awnings and overhangs, but we wanted to show the architecture of the building. And then finally, something like this for your mixed use, where you would have residential on top of commercial, or you might have offices on top of commercial. So to put it together, we have a video that I'd like to show you. The video starts over here by 25th and 24th. Just to give you some context, as the video starts, we're looking at this intersection. So this shows you having the wider sidewalks as well as the trees. And then the pavers at the crosswalks, using the existing right-of-way, as well as bollards that would keep people safe, and the introduction of bike lanes. This is your more intense commercial area, while respecting the existing houses of worship. All along Avenue E, we have houses of worship, and none of them are recommended for changes, but instead we did the streetscape around it. What we have at this area is what we call bulb outs over here, which are where the planters are, and the curbing goes a little more into the street. It's a way to slow traffic as well as introduce more green space. Here's the roundabout. And if you recall, I mentioned the opportunity for the multi-use path. It would be coming up here and connect back into Avenue E. The architecture we propose, as you can see, is a lower scale to respect the residential neighborhood to the west. So here's where the multi-use path is that would connect into the future work opportunity. So just a couple more slides. Our next steps are to get feedback from city staff, to finalize our draft report, and then also conclude with our public engagement. As you can well imagine, and as you are dealing with yourselves, because of the recent events, public engagement has gotten a little more tricky. So we're currently talking over some ideas with city staff on how to proceed. Our 3 recommendations are to delay until in-person gatherings are allowed. Option 2 is to create a project online platform and just receive projects. And then receive comments, I'm sorry. And then option 3, it would be a little more interactive. Create an online interactive forum where we can have a big Zoom meeting. Our company has that capability. and also posting content online where we would get feedback. Also, we're recommending, if we went with option 3, to designate an outdoor venue for live streaming of that Zoom event with social distancing, kind of like a movie night in the park where people can see the Zoom on a big screen, as well as submit comments and participate. So that's where we are with the project. I am going to exit out of screen sharing if I can. I have too many screens open from this office.
I recognize.
I just wanted to ask one question, Madam Chair.
Kashamba had her hand first, please.
Okay.
Ms. Miller
Well, I
Anderson.
certainly love the project, the way that it could potentially look, particularly the way in which it currently looks. And I know for a number of years we've talked about trying to do the roads, and we haven't really gotten very far with any of the progress that, you know, many of the council over the years have wanted to see happen. So I'm just excited to see this, and I would like to try to do whatever we can to make sure that this comes to fruition. And I look forward to the next phase of it. I know when we had the community meeting, a lot of people attended, and they really took their time and put forth an effort in giving their suggestions on what they wanted to see. And so I hope that we're able to capture all of the great ideas that they had and be able to make this happen, because, you know, we have a lot of, not just on Avenue E, I mean, within the area, which is where I live, it's just a lot of vacant property, vacant land. We just really need something to spur that area and get it going. And I think this would be the great focal point to make that happen. So I'm very happy to see the project and would like to make sure that we can do whatever we can to move it along.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lanier.
No, I just wanted to have one question, and maybe Mrs. Siegel and I can talk offline. But I'm very interested in your public engagement process. And I know that it's going to be very difficult even in the next 6 months about how you're going to engage people, especially when you're trying to engage people, you know, that may not have access to internet or may not be able to meet in person. So I really would like to talk to you offline about how you guys envision that in terms of, I saw your different options, but to really try to get to the nitty gritty of getting people in that neighborhood engaged. And I would really like to hear some of your thoughts on that. No, we could take that offline though.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Anyone else? Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Heidi, thank you so much. I saw a lot of the feedback from the community charrette that was hosted in your actual presentation, so it was amazing. I have a question in reference to the densities on Avenue E. I saw that a lot of the stories that we were looking at was 3 to 4 were the heights. Would we be interested in going any higher on Avenue E, since that's something that we've talked about with increasing heights on Broadway? And that was a question more so for my colleagues versus Ms. Heidi.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was for.
No, that's for the board, because Heidi's just probably going to go with our recommendation. So I'm sorry, Ms. Siegel. So she'll probably just go with our recommendation versus whatever we tell her to go. So my question is for the board, being that we've talked about densities, attracting more business, and bringing some a different look to that Broadway, the Avenue E corridor. What would our thoughts be in increasing those densities down there?
Anyone? Ms. Miller Anderson.
And I know it's 11. I know it's 11 o'clock, guys.
Yeah,
So
the juices are not flowing. That is certainly something I can put in my head and think about. But right now, I want to. I mean, it's more than 0 right now. So any addition is good. In terms of how many we want to go, I can't put a number on it right now, but.
What is our height? And Ms. Siegel, what is our height restriction right now, or Ms. Miller Anderson?
I believe it's 5.
I think 5 happens with some extra bonus type activity, but it's generally 3 and 4 along the corridor.
So it's something we can take a look at and maybe some other night we can get it. But I think you've done an excellent job, Ms. Siegel. I was also at the community meetings, and you incorporated much of what the community discussed on the evenings that you had them. So if there are no other comments, we'll move. Thank you for your time this evening. I know it's late, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us.
Yes,
We only
very good presentation.
one more item. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. Moving along to the last item 12. Clerk.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving and authorizing the transfer of funds in the amount of $125,000 from property acquisition to the 2020 CRA Economic Development Initiatives for participation in the City of Riviera Beach Economic Recovery Plan, providing an effective date. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins.
Yes, very briefly, we're asking for support for an allocation of $125,000 to be matched with $50,000 from the city for the economic recovery initiative. I believe you all heard a presentation from the city manager on that last week. And this would allow us to assist from 30 to 35 small businesses immediately for up to $5,000 during the COVID emergency. We would be utilizing a streamlined process, and thank you, Commissioner Lanier, for providing information and direction for a similar program that's getting attention around the state from the city of Boynton, where they were able to approve a program and to turn it around within days and had checks in the hands of the small businesses. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions. Oh, and just one more thing. The dollars would come from our property acquisition line item, where we currently have $300,000, and it would leave a balance of $175,000. So we do have money to allocate for this new initiative.
Ms. Jenkins, I have a question. You're asking for a $50,000 contribution from the city? Is that over and above what the city has already allocated for?
No. I believe this is the amount that the city had proposed. I know that Mr. Evans was in conversation and discussions, and this is a coordinated program with the one that you've heard from the city side.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Ms. Lanier?
No, I just wanted to say this was a as Ms. Jenkins said, this was a program that was put together by the City of Boynton and the City of Boynton CRA, and they were looking at the fact that there are a lot of businesses in our city that are really, really hurting. And as you know, from the federal government statistics, 80–90% of the funding did not come to small businesses. It came to corporations. So we were looking at some type of, we can't do a whole lot, but some type of small relief for our businesses in the city for them to be able to, I think the three major categories are payroll, utilities, and I forgot the other one. Inventory. So we want to be able to do our part. We have these seminars and webinars on on the Paycheck Protection Program, on COVID-19, the CARE Act Recovery Program, but none of that money is coming to our businesses here in the city of Riviera Beach. We want to be able to do something on our part to be able to at least provide them with some assistance. But the program that the Boynton Beach CRA and Commission did is something that has been replicated across the state.
I'm so glad you provided that as an example. I think it's an excellent example, and I, for one, would support this. I'd like to ask Mr. McCoy's opinion, because he's the purveyor of all things small business with regard to our assignments for economic recovery. So, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm a little bit confused because I see conflicting information in the resolution and also in the memo from Mr. Evans. And let me preface that by saying Mr. Scott Evans. So, Ms. Jenkins, it is 125 instead of 100? Because I see
It's
100.
I confirmed it. It's 125,000. The 100,000 is the typo. That was the initial amount that they started with, but it's 125.
Okay, and I don't think we've had this discussion about the city putting $50,000 into this program. Is this something that occurred administratively? Like, how does this happen? Because I thought we did 125 for the entire economic recovery initiative, and I allocated 25 over each department. So is this something different?
I don't want to misspeak.
No,
Commissioner.
If I may say, Mr. McCoy, these are two different initiatives. Now, the initiative that we had originally with our recovery plan that had I think it's about 5 different types of categories: health and human services, small business, public, all of that. This is something totally different from this particular project, because this project is gunning towards small businesses in the city to give them a direct benefit, to be able to keep them going and to be able to keep them, at least here in the city of Riviera Beach and not have to close. Now, the city of Boynton actually supplied their small businesses with, 10,000 apiece. And they said that within the first 24 hours, they had, 100 applications. They put in $500,000 for this particular program. But we know that we already had this other recovery piece that's already happening. So we didn't want to go in and say we can put in 500,000, because we just can't afford that. But we did want to do something and piggyback off of a lot of the other municipalities, and making sure that the businesses in this city are recognized and also are given some type of incentive to stay open.
Okay, so let me follow up and ask, and I don't know who's this question for, but let me restate, where does the $50,000 come from? Because this is not something that we've discussed as a city council. So unless you're privy to something that we aren't aware of, you keep referring to we, and I'm trying to understand what that means. So, can you tell me what that means?
Is that this particular $50,000 will be coming to our council meeting on Wednesday.
Okay,
this was something that.
Okay, that's all I wanted to find out. Because here's why. So I want to go back to Ms. Jenkins. So we are being asked to vote on a $125,000 contribution to the city's fund, or is this something that's going to be administered by the CRA? Because when looking at the memo, there's not much clarity, and it refers to Boynton Beach CRAs doing this program. So is it Riviera Beach CRA doing this program, or the city of Riviera Beach going to be administering it?
From what I understand, Commissioner McCoy, it would be the city's program, and this is a contribution from the CRA, and because the city and the CRA are participating, it will be a program that's available citywide.
We can't do that. No.
That's exactly why I was asking that question.
Yeah.
Well,
so if it's a sponsorship, that's one thing. If it's a donation, that's one thing. Because if we donated Mr. Haygood, then once we transfer the money, we don't have any control or have any stipulation as to how it has to be spent. So I want to make sure it's clear, because there's a lot of conflicting information in here. And not that I want to stop this, but
as I understood it, the CRA monies would be restricted to businesses within the CRA. And I guess the other monies that the city would administer would be citywide.
But it would be
Madam Chair.
Ms.
Go ahead,
Miller.
Ms. Jenkins. Jenkins can finish what she was saying.
Go ahead.
I understood that we were supporting the city program. How it's structured, I wasn't part of the discussions, but it wouldn't be 2 separate programs that we would be running. It would be one initiative.
And we know that we cannot use CRA money to be able to do anything with the city. The purpose of it was the fact that because we were asking the CRA, we did not want to limit it just to the businesses in the CRA. We wanted to go citywide. So that's the reason why there was conversations between the CRA and the city about their part in it, because we did not want to just limit it to businesses in the CRA.
Madam Chair.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ms. Miller Anderson, and then I have a question for Mr. Hagan. Go ahead.
So for this particular, I understood it to be the 125 is what we were being asked for, and that was to be just for the CRA businesses. I don't know anything about the 50,000. Now I do know on the city side, we've talked about this recovery plan with those categories, and each one of them have 25,000 per category, but I never understood it to join together with the CRA. And like Mr. McCoy said, we have not discussed this 50,000 situation. I'm not comfortable with combining them. And the other thing is, have the two attorneys on city and CRA side discussed this or aware of it? Because Mr. Hagan sounded like he just heard about it just now.
Well, I knew that there was a suggestion that that the CRA at least, would institute something similar to the Boynton Beach program. And I understood that the city was going to use some funds for businesses outside of the CRA on a similar basis. I have not discussed it with the city attorney, though I have discussed it with Boynton Beach CRA attorney.
So my next question is when these items, like on the city side, through Novus, the finance has to sign off on it, or the attorney has to sign off on it. Do you not have to sign off on these things before they're posted to the agenda? Mr. Hagan?
I think this was done rather recently. I think it was done like either Monday or Tuesday. So other than the fact that it was going to be, I'm sorry?
It was done today.
Yeah. Other than the fact, conceptually, that you're going to use CRA funds to attempt to help businesses that were having trouble because of the pandemic. That was the really issue that I had looked at.
Well, I mean, this is not an issue that we can fix tonight, but I'm thinking going forward, you need to have signed off on what this item is all about before it comes to the agenda, just so we're clear and not here figuring out that this is kind of conflicting. And then, I mean, I'm not comfortable with doing anything tied up with the city tonight if we haven't discussed it already. I understood it, the 125 maybe to be for businesses in CRA, but that's it. So that's where I am with that.
I think, Madam Chair, I just want to be clear that it was not about the city tonight. The city just, we talked to the city, meaning the CRA talked with the city about this endeavor. And the city said, it sounds like a good idea. The CRA said, listen, we can only fund what's in our CRA district. We can't do anything outside of that district. The city said, that's a very good idea. We can do something to at least assist with businesses who are not in the CRA district. It was just a good faith effort from the city to say, we support this.
Okay, it seems to me that if we struck the last part of this resolution and let it only read that we would willing to transfer the funds of 125,000 from property acquisition to the 2020 CRA economic development initiatives, and strike for participation in the City of Riviera Beach economic recovery plan, that we could go ahead and ensure that all of the funding would be spent on CRA businesses. Ms. Miller Anderson, and then
so I mean, unless I'm missing, what are the 2020 CRA economic development initiatives? Have I missed that? What is that?
It sounds
what
like
are they?
that would be the Boynton Beach model. Am I right?
Yeah,
Ms.
but
Lee?
that's what I'm saying. It should be clear what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Not guessing. I mean, I know that the city has an initiative going on, but have we identified what that economic development initiative is on the CRA side?
For COVID, nothing that pertains to grants or donations. You just approved some relief to the businesses at the marina. That would come under that umbrella. And we've undertaken some training sessions to help with recovery.
Okay.
But there are no financial programs beyond that.
Because of the I mean, the memo says one thing, and then we have the resolution saying another. I remember a few weeks back on the city council update meeting, not a meeting, but update that we had one night, is when this was brought up, that we wanted to use the 125 to match what the city was doing in terms of the recovery plan. And I remember that coming up, but we never had much more of a discussion about what that would look like on the CRA side. So I thought with this memo here was sort of kind of explaining what we were going to do, but I thought it seems like it turned into something else. So I'm just a little, I mean, I would love to provide that, but I just think right now it's just a whole lot of confusion for me anyway. Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Mr. McCoy.
Well, you know, I'm confused too, and by no means am I suggesting that we should do it, but I'm okay with the CRA doing their own thing. And if the city decides to do something in that realm, then the city can, you know, we can work to find the funding for it. But, you know, one of the things that I seen in the memo that I really would like both to adopt, regardless of how we go, was there was a provision that spoke of, obviously, payroll, utilities, and inventory.
Right.
I want payroll and utilities to be a requirement because, you know, what's so crazy about this, I thought I was really behind because somebody asked me, a resident from the community asked me today about the grants and the loans. And I'm saying to myself, how could you possibly tell me about something that I haven't even heard about? And when I look at the agenda today, clearly it's on the agenda. So this has been the desire of somebody or some individuals to do this. However, here's my concern. There's not going to be any fly-by-nights pulling up in the city of Riviera Beach who don't have a utility bill. First of all, you need to have an actual physical location in the city, regardless of whether the CRA is administering it or the city's administering it. I just don't want a pop-up shop or somebody that leases space that doesn't have the responsibility of somebody that has a vested tax bill every year, that has a monthly recurring water bill, to be able to take city money, because literally it won't be hard to make a case to try to come back and say the $5,000 should be forgiven. And I really want to give it to people that have a regular recurring business tax receipt and a utility bill, because I can see that this is going to be a program that, unless it's properly managed, that somebody's going to use it as some leverage to take advantage of the whole process. And really, truly, I think what we did to help those businesses down at the Marina Event Center is what we really need to support, and not just trying to give somebody a few extra bucks in their pocket just because the program exists. And I, you know, whatever we decide, I'm supporting it, but I think that there needs to be some clarity as to who's administering it, what is the parameters and the eligibility and that sort of thing. But certainly I'm going to support it regardless. I just want to make sure that we're clear on who receives this money or who's eligible to apply.
No Shake Shacks.
No, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with the fact that one of the conversations that was had with the Boynton Beach CRA was the fact that they were very, very careful in their eligibility requirements. They wanted to make sure that those people who were getting the funding were not just somebody who set up a business 6 months ago. They were people who had a vested interest in the city. So I definitely understand that. And if that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do.
Ms. Miller Anderson.
Can we get, do we have one of these with our name on it? Why isn't it done where we have our own wording for this forgivable loan program instead of having the one for Boynton on here?
I would like to see somebody put together a real Riviera Beach CRA version of the Boynton.
Yeah.
So that we know exactly what it, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we want this money
right
earmarked to help businesses in the CRA.
Yeah.
That's a given.
It would definitely be branded as Riviera Beach CRA district businesses. So we'd make sure that the application and whatever marketing we use to get the word out would definitely say all of that. We just wanted to give you an example of a best practice.
So
but for me, I'm not comfortable with voting on this tonight without having all of this stuff lining up.
Okay.
I felt like all that should be together. Everything should have been in line if you're asking us to do this tonight. I want to do it, but
We can bring it back.
needs to be together.
We could bring it back
No,
with the.
I totally agree.
I think
We
we
can
all
bring
want
it back with
to
the
do it, but we
guidelines.
want some
Yes.
clarity about what the it is, so that we know exactly what we're putting $125,000 behind. So if you can come back to us as soon as possible with the fleshed out thing, and then we would also have time. This is a surprise. The 50,000 is a total surprise to us, in terms of the city's contribution. And not that we are opposed, but we haven't had a chance to digest this yet, and we need to be able to, take a good big bite out of this idea and run it around in our heads for a few minutes before we make a vote on it. So let's.
Can I make a motion to bring this back at our next?
I wanted to add something before we make a motion.
Before you're recognized.
Well, here's the problem. I mean, we got to remember why we're doing this, and I certainly, I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Miller Anderson, but paragraph 3 says the program provides immediate loan to small businesses. I don't want this to get tied up in the bureaucracy of waiting another 2 weeks, because literally, I'm telling you what I've seen already, that folks have had to shutter their doors because they don't have income, they don't have a foreseeable future on when they're going to open back up. And then, for instance, barbershops, massage parlors, nail salons literally have to now, just since Monday, work under some conditions that we haven't even accounted for as a community, which completely impacts us. So I don't want, if we're going to call a special meeting, and I don't know if we've already decided on that, this is something I believe is very technical that can be corrected in no time, that we do correct it. But I don't want them to wait for 2 weeks, because really, do we know where we're going in 2 weeks, or what the current situation will be? So I just want to keep that on the members' mind when we have this discussion and make a
Madam
motion.
Chair.
Miller Anderson.
I think we kind of agreed to bring that CRA executive one back for next week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So we can very well put it on there, but I want to support, but this stuff for me needs to be together. I'm not comfortable with just voting on it based on what it says another city is doing. I want to see exactly what it says for me. That's just me. And we can vote, but I'm telling you where I am with it.
But can I ask this question? So who from the CRA side had conversation with the city side? Because one of the important questions that we have to ask is who's administering this from the city?
We know.
Who would be the person or department that's going to be administering this program from the city? Is anyone, Mr. Hagan?
I don't, the thing about it is that our conversation is not about what the city is going to do. Our conversation tonight is about, that's why we wanted to strike out that part that talked about the city. I don't want to get into what the city is going to do. I just wanted to have a conversation.
Give money blindly without knowing who's going to administer it?
No, we're having a conversation about the CRA money tonight.
Right,
but
if I'm not mistaken, isn't the auspices of this resolution is for us to give money to a city's fund to be administered? Yes.
I think we clarified, Mr. McCoy, that the CRA cannot give money to the city. The
CRA businesses. So are we saying the CRA is going to administer this?
I think that's I think the CRA has to administer it. Mr. Haygood, if you would weigh in on that. I think Mr. Haygood was mentioning that the CRA can't give money to anything that the city would do because there might be other city businesses involved. This would only be CRA businesses. Am I right, Mr. Haygood?
Well, that's not quite true. We could always do it in local, and the city could be restricted to just using the money,
right?
The CRA money in the CRA area. So that's not the point. But I think the point is we need to bring something back to you, showing you that this is a CRA program and how it's going to be administered. So that's what we'll do. We'll bring it back at your special meeting.
Wednesday. It's not that much longer this weekend. Mr. McCoy.
And plus, we don't want the businesses to suffer.
But if that's true, Mr. Haygood and members of the city CRA commission, then do we really need to send this money to the city? If it's going to be a restriction like that, then why don't we allow the CRA to administer this so that we don't get caught up in the bureaucracy?
That's what I thought the CRA was doing it. I wasn't aware of it being sent to the city.
The CRA is doing it.
But that, no, not if you look at the memo.
Commissioner
Because it clearly
McCoy,
says,
That's exactly why it needs to come back.
we will structure it where it is just a CRA program for the CRA funds within the CRA area.
okay, but who's gonna administer it is still the question that remains.
CRA.
Is it gonna be administered by the CRA or is it gonna be administered by the city?
The
And we need
CRA.
to understand that because there's clearly a conflict.
Yes, sir. I don't know about the administration, but it appears to me that the board is saying they want the CRA to administer money within the CRA area. So that's the way it'll be done.
Okay,
I'm okay with
Madam
that.
Chair?
Mr. Lawson.
Madam Chair.
has-
Thank you. And I think the confusion, because I was confused as well, says in the resolution that it was to participate in the City of Riviera Beach Economic Recovery Plan. And from my understanding, that couldn't work. I think as Ms. Miller Anderson stated that if this can come back next week, Wednesday, prior to the meeting, and we give some feedback to Mr. Haygood, we make sure it's structured properly, that we can have this on the agenda for next week. We can vote it and get applications out to these businesses by Thursday. Because we really have to get moving on this because these businesses are in desperate need of this money. A lot of the businesses are not receiving the PPP loans and the funding that's coming down from the federal government. So I definitely want to get this going and moving immediately. So I think next week, if we can have it administered as a CRA item, exclusively run and managed by the CRA, so that we can get applications to the businesses next week, I think that's the best bet.
I think I'm hearing consensus about that. So Mr. Haygood, if you would make it happen.
Not necessarily, Madam Chair. My
Okay.
question is, if we don't have to deal with the city, we can appropriate this, instead of putting in the city's COVID economic recovery, we could put in the CRA recovery and have staff to send back a memo outlining what that looks like in the administration of this program along with the application. So it doesn't have to come back to us, because really I'm trying to shorten the time that we have to take for us to see another item again. We've already established that this is something that the CRA has to do within their district. Let's not, make it more arduous on
Madam Chair.
administration as well as those that's going to apply. Because tell you, it's going to start as soon as we hang up this meeting. Folks are going to be interested in applying.
Ms.
Madam
Lanier,
Chair.
Ms. Lanier, and then Ms. Miller Anderson.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with this item, that it is in the sole purview of the CRA to administer this funds. They will bring back to us before this hits the street, so to speak, that it is a CRA administered program and that they have eligibility criteria, and that it is something that is in the house of the CRA.
Okay, so basically it's the agenda item as written, with the change that the end of it would say, transfer of funds in the amount of $125,000 from property acquisition to a CRA project to be outlined by the time we meet next. Right? So that we're leaving it in the hands of the CRA administration to come back to us with the appropriate language and so on. But for tonight's purposes, we're just approving the transfer of the 125, the allocation, right? Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Miller Anderson.
before we go into that, I want to be very clear. I support doing this, but I do not feel comfortable with the fact that we have information that we were given and it does not match up with what we are talking about. Nobody even understood what we were doing a few minutes ago. And I'm not trying to withhold anything from any small businesses, but we need to get our act together if we need to be able to make some decisions. We can't come here with confusing documentation. And we just had this conversation a couple of weeks back at a few meetings. So, I mean, this is basically what we're doing now, is having conflicting information. I'm not trying to slow the process, but I just can't support doing something blindly.
No, I agree. Kashima. I mean, I agree with the fact that this is the issue that we've had time and time and time again. There are things that come to the CRA that are confusing, that there's no backup. I totally get it. I really do. But I just don't want to slow
I just wanted to
down
put that on the record.
Yeah, businesses getting funding for that.
Understood. So, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
No.
Vice Chair Lawson,
No.
Chair Botel.
Yes.
That motion carries with Commissioner Miller Anderson and Vice Chair Lawson dissenting.
So to be clear, we're going to get something very definitive about what the CRA is going to do at our next meeting, but we at least have taken the first step of allocating the funding and moving it from one account to another.
Yes, we'll bring a complete packet back to you next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
So we're clear. Has the meeting been set for next Wednesday? And do we need to modify the special meeting now that this item has been approved?
Mr. Haygood needs to take care of adding this. Somebody's sound is still on. It's annoying. Mr. Haygood is going to take care
That's
of.
Mr. Lawson.
I think
Yeah,
so.
Mr. Lawson, the gentleman from the 5th District.
Yeah. Mr. Haygood is going to take care of adding that agenda. Mr. Haygood, yes? You'll take
Yes,
care of it. Thank you very much.
So,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair. Can somebody just explain to me what we just did? We just voted on it, but we're still bringing it to the meeting next week?
Well,
So
we-
why did we vote tonight?
I thought it was just the allocation.
We
I
just
thought you
voted
just
the
allocated
allocation.
the money
That's all we-
separately.
But are we gonna disperse it? Are we dispensing the
No,
money?
ma'am, not until you
We're
get
not
the
doing
information.
anything until he brings us, I know.
Well, why couldn't we do that next week? Just help me understand that. Okay, thank you.
Point taken. Let's see, we are.
All right, at 11:35.
I know, we're gonna be very quick with this. A report of the executive director. I'm sure Ms. Jenkins will say she passes.
I passed, and I just would encourage everyone to attend our webinar on Monday, the public.
Thank you. A report from the General Counsel, Mr. Where'd he go? He didn't leave, did he? Report from Counsel, General Counsel.
I would like to get some clarification exactly, much like Commissioner McCoy. So I had thought this is going to be for your next Wednesday before your city council meeting. You're going to address these two items.
Yes.
One being the executive director search, the information you asked me to bring back.
Yes.
And number two is going to be the pandemic relief fund.
Yes. Yes. Those two items.
So typically you would get this, we would try to get to you like today, but that's not going to happen. So we'll try to get it out to you by Friday.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Report, let's see, discussions by the board. We'll start with Mr. McCoy. Nothing. Thank you. Ms. Lanier. Thank you. Ms. Miller Anderson.
I only wanted to say about, I know I keep harping about the 3 people being visible. I totally understand the need to leave, but I just want to help us remember, if we were in the chambers, we would not all leave the dais without having the 3 people. I'm not saying we can't go, because I'm the first one to get up and go. All I'm asking is that we make sure we look to see that there are 3 people left if you're going to leave off. I understand that Walter has it set up that there's only active cameras being shown, but I just don't want us to be in that position. And the governor's order did not waive the fact that you have to have a quorum. You still got to have a quorum.
It in fact.
You got to have a quorum. It says present. It says present. And I had it up here. It said that it waived it for you to be have a quorum to be physically present, basically, is what it's saying. You still got to have a quorum.
My camera's just not on.
So how do we know you're there? You might just be signed in and not there. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And it's for everybody's protection. I may be being anal about the situation, but I just don't, it's uncharted territory. And I just don't want to be, I'm
not reading all night. This is already.
There's a chat. There's a chat on the side over here that if we want to say that we're going to step away from 10 minutes, we can just put it in the chat box and everybody knows.
No, we don't need to do that. We just look and see. If we got 3 people there, then feel free to leave. But if you got to go, just look and see if you got 3. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. Just, I don't want to be the example.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Anything for the good of the order?
He doesn't have anything. I'm sure he
Thank
heard
you,
that.
Madam.
He don't have nothing to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I was going to ask that all my colleagues, tomorrow we're going to be hosting a community conversation called The Bridge. It's going to be immediately after the city call that we do every Thursday. It's called The Bridge. It's going to be for concerned residents that have been expressing their issues and concerns with the crime that's in our community, with the divide in our community, with the lack of support between residents and leadership and police force. So I reached out to I'm reaching out to my colleagues now to see if they have anyone in their district interested in sitting on the task force that's going to be community-led and community-driven. Mr. Dave Ehrenberg is going to be on the call, Senator Bobby Powell, and Chief Osgood and Mr. Jonathan Evans will be on the call tomorrow. So it's going to be a task force of about 12 to 15 residents. So I would love for my colleagues to submit a name to Mr. Jonathan Evans tomorrow by 12, so we can reach out to them and see if they'd like to participate in the task force.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I only have one comment, and that is, I respect you all so much. I think you know that. I think that anybody who would even try to put words in my mouth to the contrary is just himself, dumb as a bag of rocks. Oh, I didn't say that. No, seriously, you know my sentiments about you, and I think that goes without saying. So we will see each other again on Friday. No, let's see, when's our next meeting? I've gotten so confused now and it's too late. Friday, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Friday.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Good night.